Howdy. My computer is not playing along. Welcome back to Dion Talk. How to make work optional. I'm going to cover this subject for a few minutes, give everybody a chance to get their questions into the comments and get to howdies. This will be a nice short live stream that will go on as long as the questions keep coming in. Making work optional is something that a lot of people associate with the FIRE community. Financial independence, retire early. For me, the financial independence part is key. The retire early part, not so much. Let me make sure my sound is set up right. I don't think it's coming through right. And maybe. Why am I on the wrong setting? Let me know how the sound is doing in the chat, please. It seems to be grabbing the wrong mic. Hopefully the sound is working. I can't seem to get it on the right mic, my computer. So in financial independence, retire early. A lot of people talk about retiring early, and that actually turns a lot of people off. Kind of like reaching financial freedom in the first place. Some people have the perception that money is evil. I grew up with a very racist, homophobic family that would say things like, the rich are just horrible people. I mean, how else could they get rich unless they were horrible people? They must be ripping somebody off somehow. So one of the first things we need to do is overcome our fear of money. Most of us understand you need to pay bills, so we work to make enough money to cover the bills. But something in our mind says if we work for more than we need, we're joining the bad people. Kind of like some of us look at retiring early and we think of retiring as in your 60s or 70s when you're done working and you can now just enjoy life. A part of our brain resists enjoying life now, thinking that it has to be a part of a retirement. So for me, what really matters in the FIRE community, because most of the thoughts line up with the way I do things, is financial independence, to make work optional. There is a monumental amount of mental peace that comes when you work because you want to and not because you have to. So in order to make work optional, there's really three main phases. The first phase is to understand what is work. Have you ever thought about why do we work? Most people think we work because we're going to pay the bills. Well, there's a lot of ways to make money, but work is consistent. We have kind of recurring bills that we know what to expect. So we find a job that lines up with what it costs us to live. Sometimes we develop a skill to make more money, but developing the skill can take just as much money as it's going to increase your income. We work because they pay us to be there. We work for cash flow. We're going to have money going out for living expenses. So we need money coming in for living expenses. We're going to have money going out for food. We're going to have money going out for transportation, entertainment, healthcare, the main things. And that didn't even come down to entertainment, travel, those kind of things. I mean, the needs, more important than the wants. We work for cash flow. And most people don't think of that. We think we work for a paycheck or we work to pay the bills. But when you go to work, what you're trying to do is get cash flow. When you spend time at work, you're actually putting your employer in your debt. Most jobs are designed to where you work for 1 or 2 weeks, putting the employer in your debt. And at the end of that time period, they pay you a paycheck. That paycheck wipes out the balance. So they're no longer in your debt. Ever wonder why the employer wants to be in your debt? Because they're going to make more money off of your money than it costs to pay you. You're going to produce value to the employer. It's why they pay you to be there. So we work for that money. So the first step when it comes to reaching financial independence, as much as most people don't like to hear it, is actually working. You're not financially independent until you find the money to put to work. Michael Zuber says this often, and I think he nails it really well. We don't get rich quick. We want to get wealthy for sure. So learning how to make money is step one. And there are several ways to do that. The goal should be to find a way to get paid based on your results instead of selling your life 1 hour at a time. That can be a sales position, that can be a marketing position. Most of the jobs I've ever had have been hourly. I was selling my life 1 hour at a time. My original plan was to do 20 years in the Marine Corps, 20 years in law enforcement, and then retire. 2 pensions, calling it good. So working, selling my life 1 hour at a time for up to 40 years to get those pensions to retire on. Here's the risk with that. After Desert Storm, the Marine Corps downsized. So that job went away. The idea of even getting to that pension went away. In 2008, when the recession hit, I got laid off from a police department. So that job and possible pension went away. So we work to develop cash flow coming in. Step 2 should be learning to save. Spend less than you're making. Not many people pull this one off. A lot of people are actually living on credit, so they're spending more than they make. And credit cards and loans, they make it really easy. Pay no interest for 12 months. Buy more than you can afford because you're not going to feel the pain now. You're going to feel the pain later. So a lot of people are racking up debt, or we get stuck with not only consumer debt, student loan debt. We're told at a young age, you're only successful if you go to college. We're told over and over and over that you're only successful if you go to college. 15% of high school graduates continue on to a 4-year degree, but most of us at least attend school and rack up student loan debt, which is the worst kind of debt. We have good debt and bad debt, but is bad subject to gradation? That would be not the baddest. The worst debt is student loan because it's unforgivable. You can't bankruptcy it. You can't, no matter what tragedy happens in your life, that debt is there. So learning to live on less than what you make. And part of that really stresses making money. You can only save 100% of what you make. It's limited. And that is if you don't have any housing cost, any food cost, any healthcare cost, any travel or entertainment. If you have no cost, you can save 100% of what you make, which sometimes is possible when you're like 10, 11, or 12 years old. But once you start to have expenses like a car or paying for your own food, saving 100% of what you make is difficult. It's the actual goal. I'll cover why, but it's hard to do that. So we need to find ways to increase your income because you can only save 100% of what you make. There's no limit to what you can make. Sometimes it's your job, increasing the amount of money you make at your job by becoming more important to the employer. And in the dinosaur days, you were rewarded for staying at a company for a long time, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. In the last 10 to 20 years, the best way to get a raise is to change companies. At your company, you're probably going to get a 3 to 7 COLA, cost of living raise. Maybe you might even not get one. Sometimes when you switch companies, you get a 20% increase in your pay because that's how they enticed you to go there. So that's different than it used to be. It's not as frowned on to change companies now as much as it was before. They even came out where they changed the law where non-competes can only cover you if you make up $100,000 or more. If you make less than that, I'm pretty sure it was a federal change and it was a Washington state change, but they can't hold you to a non-compete if you're making less than $100,000 because people know sometimes the best way to make more money was to switch jobs. There are also side hustles you can develop. You can learn to make money that doesn't require you working a full-time job, especially now in the last couple of years with how many remote or working at home jobs there are. I'm not saying to do this, but there are people who have more than one of those jobs that are considered full-time, but somehow they do them both while they're at home. I didn't say to do that. I said it's happening. So now you're working for cash flow. You're trying to limit your expenses. You're trying to spend less than you make. And sometimes this can be eliminating expenses. Cut the cable cord. And for a couple of years, that made sense. Get rid of cable because it saved you $100 to $200 a month. Well, now, if you have enough streaming services in Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, HBO Max, you're paying as much as when you had cable. But at least you don't have commercials. So to me, it's still an upgrade. What to me was more important than eliminating small expenses like your latte factor or cutting the cable was to eliminate housing expenses, which for most of us is the largest expense. We call this the cheat code to wealth, where you reduce or eliminate your housing costs by house hacking. That can be renting out rooms in your place or buying a place that is small multifamily where you live in one unit and rent out the others, or you use owner-occupied lending to buy a house, live there for a year, and in a year you do it again and rent out the house you just moved out of. So there's several versions of house hacking that lower our biggest expense. During this time when we're trying to earn as much as we can by increasing our income. We want to spend less than we make. It's important to avoid life creep. When you develop a side hustle that starts making $100 to $500 a month, you don't add $100 to $500 a month to how much you spend to live. That goes into your saving for investing fund. So the third step, first is make money, second is spend less than you make. The third step is to put that money to work, to buy assets that produce cash flow. We start out working for cash flow, but eventually we want to buy things that produce cash flow. This can be, to me, my least favorite option that's talked about a lot in the FIRE community. If you're in the Choose FI group or the Mr. Money Mustache groups, everybody talks about the 4% rule. Investing in stocks to the point where your portfolio grows enough to where with an average increase of 10% a year, you could take out 4% to live on, leaving enough percent left to pay the taxes for the money that you're taking out and enough to cover inflation in normal years. Over a long enough timeline, inflation is 2 to 3%. The last 2 years, it's been a black swan event where it's way more than we were planning for. So my problem with the 4% rule isn't that I don't like stocks. It's that this is the version of reaching financial freedom that takes the largest amount invested. If you need $40,000 a year, the way the 4% rule is you need to invest 25% of your annual expenses. So if it takes you $40,000 a year to live, you need to invest $1 million. I've invested from my income, from my job, about $320,000 into the path that I did choose. And my annual cash flow for 2022 is set to be about $136,000. It was $128,000 in 2021, but I used the binder strategy, which increased some of my income. $320,000 to make $128,000 versus $1 million to make $40,000. But it's still a path a lot of people choose because ultimately, when it comes to investing, you need to invest in a strategy that excites you. We are more likely to stick to a plan we're emotionally invested in. If real estate doesn't excite you, do something else. Stocks don't excite me. So that's the first one. When it comes to figuring out how to reach financial freedom, a lot of people think, I make this much money at work, so I need to make that much money from a source other than work, which is financial freedom. When money coming in is larger than your living expenses. But the way they're thinking about it is a little bit wrong. When we're working, we pay the highest level of taxes. That is earned income. It is taxed at the highest level. We're also saving for retirement. We're also saving to invest, where we have the cost of commuting. It costs money to get to work, to have the clothes, to have the electronics it takes to do the job. So when you stop working, those expenses go away. You're still possibly, depending on your investing strategy, going to pay taxes. You could have some expenses that go up, like currently you're probably paying $100 to $500 a month for healthcare, and your employer is paying the remainder. When you retire, you're going to pay for your healthcare. So you're going to also be paying the employer's portion. So there are some expenses that can go up, but it's not as much as saving for retirement, paying the highest in taxes, saving to invest. All of that adds up. So usually we don't need to have enough passive income to replace our whole income. We need to have enough passive income to replace our living expenses. And to find that freedom number, to figure out what financial independence is, the best way, instead of projecting forward what you think it's going to be, is look at the data you already have. Look at the last 6 months. Look at your bank statements, credit cards, cash transactions, Venmo, PayPal, anything that you're using for money transactions, and figure out what are you actually spending every month, and then pad that. For me, financial freedom, I think in my mind, financial independence happened when I pretty much reached what my wage was, because that's more than what my living expenses were. I'm at about almost 5 times my living expenses now, and I still work. I still have a job. I love my job. One of the reasons that it's a little risky for me to make a video like this is I work for a company and I own 10%, but the other owners own 90%. I can imagine they get fairly concerned when I make a video that says how to quit your day job, because my day job makes them a bunch of money, right? So I want to be very clear. I love my job. I don't plan on quitting. I want to work because I like the job. I've heard some people say, I love my job so much I would do it for free. Okay, here's my official technical opinion of that statement. That's stupid. I love my job so much. This is the only job I would do for money. Makes more sense to me. I wouldn't do a job for free. So we learn to make as much as we can. We develop side hustles so that we can make more, so that we can spend less than we make. Now we want to invest in cash flowing assets. I talked about the Trinity study of the 4% rule, how it works. And a lot of people in the fire community like it. I don't like it for a couple of reasons. One, stocks don't excite me. Two, you have to invest so much into stocks for it to have an impact that it's not my chosen path. The next path is to start and grow a business. You can start and grow a business, or you can buy a business. I actually invest in several that are businesses. I own part of a headphones company called Meters Music. So if you check out Ashdown, it's sold on Amazon China, Walmart Mexico. We're looking at sales in the United States. It's a UK company. So there are actually websites where businesses exist that are for sale. And I listed some of them here in my notes. Flippa.com, empireflippers.com, businessbuysell.com, ways that you can look up what businesses are for sale. A lot of people, when we talk about real estate, which is what my content usually covers, in case you haven't figured it out already, there are businesses that are for sale. And one thing that I'll say is, I am not an entrepreneur. I'm an investor. And here's the difference. I said you can start and grow a business with the goal of having somebody else run it. Kind of like the trucking school that I work for. The owners that own 90% had the business, they grew it, I run it. They don't have to come in and run the day-to-day. So you could do a business like that. You can go to those business websites to buy a business that's for sale, that's already up and running. Do your research just like real estate, and you can buy an asset that you can grow and have other people run. The reason I'm not an entrepreneur is because a lot of people say, I want to be an entrepreneur because I don't want to have a boss. And my answer to that is, congratulations. Every single customer with a Yelp account is now your boss. And other people will say, I don't want a job because I don't want to have to work 40 hours a week. Well, if you're an entrepreneur, you're probably going to work 80 hours a week. So the two main reasons why people want to be an entrepreneur are the reasons I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm super lazy. I don't want to work 80 hours a week. And I don't want a bunch of customers with Yelp accounts to be my boss. I'm an investor. I want to take money and put it to work into something that pays me without me having to sell my life 1 hour at a time. Stocks, growing a business, then there's dividend stocks. You can actually buy stocks that pay you. So there are stocks like AT&T, or you can invest in REITs, real estate investment trusts, which is like buying a stock that owns real estate. And then the actual requirement in a REIT is that they pay out 90% of their income to the stockholders. So it's still a way to invest in stocks, but tie yourself to real estate. You don't get the benefits of investing in real estate yourself, but you are still touching the real estate world. So we're talking about growing a machine that produces money. That can be the stock portfolio, the business that is a business. It can be real estate, but you can actually buy machines that produce money. You can buy vending machines. You can make cash flow from vending machines. You can buy ATMs. How many people didn't know that a lot of ATMs are privately owned? Todd Baldwin had a video that came out recently on how he buys them, where he finds them, how much he's making off of each one. So Todd Baldwin here on YouTube, check out the video. You can literally buy machines that make money. Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, actually talks about in his book, when he buys a rental property, it's like having an oil well. He literally looks at mentally that property as a machine that produces money every month. We want to buy assets that produce cash flow. When I talked about how much you earn and adding things that you want to develop side hustles, and it can be vending machines. It can be, my side hustle is actually real estate. I buy a rental property. It produces cash flow. I take my money from the bank. I move it from the bank into the property. Then it starts producing a better return than it was getting me in the bank. So my goal is to make as much as I can. And there are several ways that you can generate money from income that don't always require you to sell your life 1 hour at a time. It can be real estate. It can be a vending machine. It can be an ATM. It can be all of those things. Sometimes making more money is developing or learning a skill that you get paid for. You can, I have a friend, Steve, who is a music teacher, and music teachers don't make a lot of money. But if he does that as a side hustle while he's growing his real estate empire, that can still be a side hustle that produces money and something he enjoys. You can learn American Sign Language and get paid to be an interpreter. Or you can meet a really hot girl who's deaf and learn sign language and then find out that she's into your sister. Those are some options. You can work as a journeyman under an electrician for 4 years as an apprentice. I mean, it would take 4 years to develop the skills, but then your income becomes that of a journeyman electrician. You can, like Jones O did, go to a CDL school to get a CDL to get a better paying job. You don't have to go to 8 years of college to become a doctor or a lawyer. There are jobs that pay more than what you might be making now that might take 4 or 8 weeks of training or 6 months of ASL training to figure out a skill that you can actually make more money on. So we increase that income. In the FIRE community, a lot of people talk about being frugal and not spending money and the latte factor. And Mr. Money Mustache Group talks about don't have a car, ride a bike to work. You have a better carbon footprint. Okay, I'll give them that. That's true. But you save money by having the bike. I live in Washington. Not really an option. There's about 20 days a year where you can ride a bike in the weather here. I do agree in the FIRE community that you need to be frugal for about 5 years. Those first 5 years before you hit the income snowball, before your cash flow from assets starts to pile up, this is when we don't want to buy the newer car, take the better vacation. We don't want to just upgrade our housing expenses, move into the bigger house for about 5 years. My problem with the FIRE community is some people talk about being frugal forever. If you can reach financial freedom because you bring your cost of living so low, is that a life you want to live? It's possible, and it works for some people, but I'm not frugal. I like to take at least a month trip every year. First, I went to Colombia and then Thailand. And then when the pandemic hit, I took a month with my brothers and traveled all over the country, the United States. I'd seen more countries than states. So now I finally balanced that out some. I have a jacked up F-250 that actually says the compensator on the tailgate. To eat all the time. I have probably every streaming service you can imagine. I like to take in information. I'm definitely not frugal, but I was for those first about 6 years really before the income snowball kicked in for me. Some people might not have as much bad debt as I did, so that income snowball might happen sooner. But don't be frugal forever, but be frugal for a while. I'm just going through my notes to make sure I don't miss anything before I get into the questions. To make work optional, acquire cash flowing assets that cover your living expenses. Once that happens, I don't think that's actually when somebody should quit their job unless they hate it. If you hate it, you can quit your job even if you had to take a lower paying one, because having cash flowing assets that cover your living expenses isn't, for me, the ultimate goal. Like I said, I'm not frugal. Once you have your living expenses covered, I like to have a nice car, right? But I don't want to pay for it. I don't want to sell my life 1 hour at a time to pay for that vehicle. So I want to buy a cash flowing asset. Another thing, right out of Rich Dad Poor Dad. If you want to buy a nice car, how much would the payment be? $1,000 a month for the payment, the insurance, the upkeep. Buy a rental property that produces $1,000 a month. And then in 5 years, when that truck is paid off, you still own the asset. It's appreciated. You've experienced principal pay down. You're still getting cash flow. You have the thing that you wanted that was a luxury, not a life requirement. I could have bought a cheaper car, but have an asset for that expense. Just like healthcare. A lot of people worry, I can't quit my job because I don't have healthcare covered. Well, like I said earlier, right now you are paying for healthcare. If you are working for a W-2 company, a regular job where you're going to work to get a paycheck, if that employer is providing you with healthcare, you're paying for it. Part of your compensation package, even if you don't see it coming out of your paycheck. As an employer, we have about 60 staff, so our healthcare is a little bit more expensive. We pay somewhere between $1,100 and $1,700 based on the person's age and a couple of other health factors, right? Our employees pay, I don't know, it's like 5%. So somewhere between $50 and $200, depending on all of the factors per month. So when they stop working for us, those people will pick up the expense on the employer side. So what you need, if you are worried about healthcare, your healthcare bill is going to be somewhere between $1,100, maybe $2,000 as you get older, right? Per month. So you need an asset that produces that much money every month to cover that expense. Don't get locked into thinking you have to work because you need benefits. You need an asset that covers the expense of healthcare, housing, healthcare, transportation, food, entertainment, an asset for every expense. We reach financial freedom, financial independence by not having to work. That's when our living expenses are covered. Once we reach financial freedom, that's when we have enough money coming in from our assets that we don't have to look at price tags. We don't have to think. I still think when I go to a country, I looked at Colombia and Thailand, top of the list, they still like Americans. Few countries where that's a thing. So that's where I'm looking to go. Second thing, economic strength. The dollar compared to their currency. You can go. When I went to Colombia and Thailand, my portfolio was a bit smaller. Like in Colombia, it was less than half of what it is now. I still came back from a month in Colombia where I did everything. I had more money when I came back than what I left with. Those are the kind of countries that I currently like to visit. As the cash flow from the assets increases, you could start to go to more expensive countries and not worry about the price tag. I am going to get to the questions. Hopefully we can get a few. Like I said, this is going to be a nice short live stream that lasts as long as the questions do. Let's see if I can get my computer set up the way it's supposed to go. Howdy, Tom. Howdy, John. So you got your CDL. Congratulations. No restrictions, no manual or automatic. And you tested in a fifth wheel, so not a pintle hook, hopefully. And tomorrow you're going to go for your tanker or doubles, triples. I would get hazmat. Even if you don't want a hazmat job, it makes you more likely to get some jobs, because I worked for a dairy farm for a while as a truck driver. And one of the things that helped me get the job was they had a fuel truck to fuel the fleet sometimes. So once every couple of months, you might be the person who goes and fuels the fleet. You had to drive on the road a couple times to do that. So it took hazmat. So even if you don't want to drive for hazmat, it opens up more doors. And hazmat doesn't mean you're going to haul dynamite down the freeway or nuclear waste or something. If you want to drive for Lowe's, a pallet of paint or bleach or batteries, there's all kinds of things that require hazmat placards that I would include in your CDL, so it opens up more doors for you and get some real experience. Pallavi, howdy. CJ, howdy. The amigos who is ready to make work optional. Dawn, howdy, and thank you for letting me know the sound is working. I think it's on the wrong mic, so it's probably not going to be a great sounding video. I should have checked that beforehand somehow. Investing in rentals. Howdy. I found your passion. Sounds good. Thank you. Good. Matt, thank you. Howdy. RAS owners, howdy. Welcome to Washington. Dion, loving our first week in Washington. A fire broke out first day here, just a few doors down. Property manager says it's going to take a year to fix the unit. If you had renter's insurance, you might have some options. I had a friend who had a fire 4 units down, and they got like $17,000 to move. So if you had renter's insurance, check with them and see what your options are. Chester, howdy. REI, that's in the middle unit. The lower and upper also need to be fixed due to water damage. So 3 units out because of one fire. Reserves are essential, and insurance is definitely essential. Phil, howdy. CJ, that's more insurance than reserves. Yep. Yeah. REI owners, when you get insurance, what exactly does it cover? Flood, fire, tenant damage, earthquake. Each policy is completely different. You can ask to make sure that you have the things covered that you want to. For instance, I don't have loss of rent covered in my rentals. The cost with the places that I called didn't justify me just having reserves, because 10 years, this is how many lost or missing payments I've had, even during the pandemic. After my first tenant, we'll take the first tenant out of the equation. Since I got my systems in place, that many lost or missing payments in over 10 years. So I have it, fire, flood, or blood. I have $300,000 in slip fall on each property, and then I have an umbrella policy for $2 million. So if any lawsuit goes above the $300,000, then it triggers the umbrella policy. Tenant damaging the property, maybe, because that becomes a civil matter where you can go after the tenant for the damages. Sometimes the insurance company will do that. Check with your insurance company to see what they cover. Some will cover if a water pipe breaks, water damage. But here is a bit of advice. I have all of my deductibles as high as possible. Some of them are at $10,000. I think the rest are at $5,000 is my smallest deductible, because I will never have an insurance claim unless it's for tens of thousands of dollars, like a complete burn down or somebody fell and broke a neck or something like that, right? That's what I'm going to do an insurance claim. In 2006, before I was an investor, I owned a house and had a tree branch from the neighbor smack into my house. Broke some windows, broke a sliding glass door, so I put in French doors, did some other things, did an insurance claim for the broken windows. It was like $1,300. They paid $1,300 to have the tree. They didn't even clean up the tree limb. I ended up having to do that myself. My insurance rates tripled. And for 5 years, no other insurance company would insure me. So when you have one property, yeah, that kind of sucks. But if all of my insurance rates on all my properties tripled because of a claim that I have and no one else would insure me, that would be crushing. So I would want to make sure that I had a justifiable expense. So again, back to your earlier statement, REI owners, of reserves are essential. North Colorado Dawn, howdy. Hello, everyone. Enjoyed your discussion with Rylas. I really liked the discussion with Rylas. It was pretty cool. I have a feeling it wouldn't have went so well with the other attorney on Michael's channel on LLCs, because he didn't even watch the video and he attacked me on Facebook. Literally said, "This is a load of BS." And he didn't abbreviate like I did. At least Rylas talked with me and said, "Hey, here's my thoughts. What are your thoughts?" The other attorney just said, "You threatened my form of income. You suck." Can't argue with that. So KHP F881, which is probably an acronym that I'm not catching. Howdy. Howdy, Dion. I loved your session with Mark and CPA over on LLC. Good one. And keep the energy going. Thank you. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. There was a problem with my sound, to where every now and then it would look like they were talking and they weren't. And then when they were talking, I couldn't hear that they were talking. So I think I talked over them a couple times. I have to work on that. Maybe I need a new computer. CJ. Policies vary. You can get separate flood insurance. Then for most insurance policies, you can cover X amount of, or just the cost of rebuild, I believe, something like that. Definitely talk to an insurance agent. Yeah, definitely talk to the insurance agent. There's a big difference between replacement cost and sometimes it's like purchase value. What did you purchase it for? So they'll replace it for that. Well, as we've had supply chain issues and costs have gone up, what you purchased it for will no longer replace that building. So I have full replacement value on the properties, which does make the premiums go up a little bit every year, but it's not much. I think my duplexes were like 410 or 420, and now they're like 480 a year. My single family house was 310. It's 310. What was the one that changed? There was one that changed like $200. I think it was a triplex. Fourplex stayed the same. My fourplex is $900 a year. So, but as prices go up, your premiums can go up, which is what we talk about. Our cost of ownership increase, which is why rents go up. All right, so CJ, I understand insurance covers it, but reserves to keep paying the mortgage while the places are being fixed can't be rented. True, and some insurance will cover lost rent. But like I said, I don't have that. Chester. Debt is amoral. The purpose for its use is for good or bad. Amoral. So it doesn't have a moral standing. It's not good or bad. Part of this, to make an example, using debt for a guaranteed cash flowing asset is better than a potential for a better career. I like it when you talk, Chester. I don't know if I agree with that one. Potential for a better career, yes. If you go to school to get a degree and it takes 4 years to get that degree, does that degree tie to an income? Yes, maybe pursue it. In 4 years, do you think you're going to want to work in that field? That's a hard one for me. If you go to college for 4 years to get a degree that doesn't tie to income and incurs a bunch of student debt, that's questionable intellect. But like Jones, you take a $4,000 or $5,000 CDL course and you go from making $40,000 or $50,000 a year to $70,000 or $80,000 with a local driving job, or you get a welder certificate or an HVAC certificate or something in a trade where you don't have to go to school for so long. I think that's an investment that might be worth it if you want to work in that field. CJ, yeah, not sure. Too specific of a question and haven't needed to dig into that. Chester, in the form of an expense advanced degree, And then my chat moved. Sorry. I can embed it. Yeah. CJ, I'd assume if your house burned down, you would pay the mortgage off with the insurance money, then rebuild or sell the plot. That's what makes sense to me after thinking of it for only a few minutes. I don't know that it's a both, and I don't know that it's an either. I think if you have an insurance claim that covers the cost of rebuilding, that doesn't impact the mortgage. You're still paying the mortgage every month, but now you have a new asset. If you paid off the mortgage, now you don't have the money to rebuild. It doesn't do both. Yeah. Some people may take the money, pay off the mortgage, and then sell the property with the burned down building on it. So the next investor gets it at a better price, does a BRRRR. Walk by Faith and Budget. Howdy. Cool name. 130,000 you make from real estate. So you make a couple grand in cash flow from each property. So I'm a data guy. In 2021, it was 128,000 was the profit. And then I set aside for maintenance, capex, and repairs. And I haven't done the math because I didn't come anywhere near spending the amount of money I set aside for that. It's almost 3,000 a month that goes into that account for that, and I don't touch that. So that actually hit the reserve cap, how much money I have in reserve. So that money actually funneled into the investing account, which grew exponentially. I've got the money to buy the next property. So I have to figure out, I probably made like 150 or something, but 128 was what I made if I calculated taking out the 10% for capex and maintenance and 5% for vacancy. I self-manage, so I don't do property management. And it's not a couple thousand a property. I have 16 units. I think they averaged out to like $680 a unit or something when I was doing the math. I was going to make a video a couple months ago on that, decided against it. I don't do BRRRRs. I don't do cash out refinances. I don't take out a HELOC. I take the money, invest in the property, use the binder strategy to get the rents up. I maintain the properties. And first year I get, around a 10% return. But once I've had a property 2 or 3 years, I'm getting over 20% return because the mortgages almost stay the same. Insurance goes up a little, taxes go up a little, rents go up like this, especially in the last 2 years. So yeah, when you hear on like BiggerPockets and they go, I make $100 or $200 a door, I'm thinking, what are you doing wrong? You can have more doors. And I totally get more doors means more appreciation, more principal paid down every month. So for some people, it's probably a more effective thing, but I don't want a lot of doors. I have 16. I might buy 3 more properties, get up to 25 to 30 units, depending on what kind of small multifamily I find. I don't want more than that. At that point, I might change to paying off debt just because how much more than your cost of living when you start living the more expensive life that you would like, how much more do you need? Like I see Matt, the lumberjack landlord, and Michael Zuber with their 112 units and coming up on 200 units. And I think you guys are building machines of generational wealth. Great. I don't like my kids that much. No, I do. But I don't need a bunch of numbers, a bunch of units. I wanted the cash flow. So that's why I haven't done a home equity line of credit or cash out refinance. And I don't care what the appreciation is. Don't really care what the principal pay down is, but I mean, that's the thing that's happening too. Principal pay down is great. For me right now, it's about $3,200 a month. Beginning of last year, it was like $3,000 a month, but now it's like $3,200 of principal pay down that's happening every month without me having to do anything. It's like a savings that grows every month without me actively putting any money in it. Money that I'm not touching now. Keith, howdy. So you've seen a video with the hat, Jones. Now, I'm about to look, but have you covered exactly how to screen tenants? How do I pull the rentals history request? Okay, I'm sorry. I try to read these as much as possible because I know some people watch the video later, sped up, and the question is, how do I screen tenants? How do I pull their renters history, credit scores, background check? I use apartments.com. Zillow also offers something like this, but it's free for the owner to use apartments.com. I can do listings. I can collect rents on there. If I want to get paid super quick, I think there's a little fee, but if I'm willing to wait 3 to 5 days, which if you're waiting, if it matters when you get your rent, you might be doing this wrong. So there's no fee for the owner. The applicant used to, when I had Cozy, they would pay $38 an application. Now the tenant pays $45 for apartments.com. Apartments runs their credit history, runs their eviction history, gives you their work contact. So you, and I wouldn't use that number to contact their work. I would then Google the name of the company, find a contact number, and contact, so it's not some friend pretending to be their employer. So that's what I do for that, is use apartments.com to screen tenants. I do have a video on my channel on how to screen tenants. It's called Tenant Screening 101. I'm surprised with my memory I was able to remember the name of that video, because now there's a little over 180 units on this channel, 180 videos. Janet, howdy, I'm marvelous. How are you? Chester, how would you describe the difference between an entrepreneur's business and an investor's business? Could you discuss the difference in mindset for those who aren't familiar with cash flow quadrant? Sure. An investor wants to put money to work, and an entrepreneur wants to work for money to develop the systems to make money. That's the biggest difference to me. An entrepreneur is running their own business, whereas an investor, you might run a business. I could try to start a tree company. I could hire a tree crew, a climber, a faller, a cleanup crew, buy a chipper and a skidder and a wood stump grinder, and put all that together, and maybe even an estimator. I don't physically need to go to the job sites, and I don't need to trim the trees, and I don't need to do the cleanup. That's an investor. An entrepreneur is a guy with a chainsaw and a truck that goes out and trims trees for money. So the entrepreneur is willing to do the work in the business to grow the business, where I would want to buy or build the business that I don't have to work in. Just like with real estate, there are entrepreneurs who do the Burr method: buy a property, rehab it, rent it out, refinance, repeat, right? That's all the work it takes to get the Burr. I buy a property, save up money and buy a property, and save up money and buy a property. See the difference in investor versus entrepreneur? I've never done a rehab. What's the biggest I've done? I've painted. I have painted between tenant flips. I think I just like to paint. I've everything else, garage door replacement, I've had that done by somebody else. I'm so lazy. If I have to replace a sink, I call a handyman. I'd rather pay somebody and have somebody earn money and want to work for me more in the future when I need them for an emergency job on those kind of jobs that I could do myself. So that to me is the investor. Put money to work, not work for money. I'm a good employee. I think that's an investor too. I go to work for the people who own the trucking school, and I do my best to make this a solid company. I've literally put processes in place to where they can fire me tomorrow. So if they're listening, they can fire me tomorrow, and the business wouldn't skip a beat. They would continue to make money. They would continue to grow. I have amazing leadership staff in roles to where if I die, the company's safe. But if they fire me, the company's safe. I work really hard for them because the owners of the company gave me an opportunity a long time ago that no one else has ever given me. If I owned the company, I think it would be 1/10 of the size that it is. I would have grown the company to where I was comfortable, and that would be good. But since I'm working for someone else as an employee, I want to make them as stable and profitable as possible. They pay me. They gave me 10% of the company because I've grown it so much. I took that money and I put it to work in real estate using a format that doesn't take a lot of work. I self-manage my 16 units. It takes me about 2 hours a month on a rough month. Usually it's an hour, if that. Yeah. So that's kind of, to me, the difference between an investor and entrepreneur. And so you wanted the cash flow quadrant explained. I did a video where I explained the cash flow quadrant to Matt, the lumberjack landlord, who I think had the mental process of, as an investor, we're not paying any taxes, and as an employee, we would, because he's got both. But he had never read or listened to the book. So there's a video on my channel called the cash flow quadrant. I have a whiteboard at work. I'm at home today, and I have a new map. I don't know if anybody noticed, but I have a whiteboard. That's where I'll do the cash flow quadrant, full explanation. Basically, earning money through work is taxed at the highest level. If you're self-employed, you even pay the employer side. Business owners pay about 20% in tax, whereas an investor, and so I'm totally transparent on here, so don't sue me, bro. When I talk about making $128,000 in profit last year, I know I made more because I didn't spend the money I was setting aside for reserves and maintenance and CapEx. This is how much taxes I paid. An income tax from rental profits. I paid a lot of money from my W-2 job into taxes. And my tenants paid a lot of property tax, but I paid no income tax because an investor generally pays zero in taxes because we don't have a tax penalty system. There's a better word for it. We have a tax incentive program. We need housing. We need businesses to employ people. So the government rewards you for hiring people or making rental properties or making business, creating businesses or create, building on properties. You're rewarded by paying less in taxes. Doesn't seem fair, but it's what makes the system work. And let me think of that. Okay. Chester, my personal opinion on the FIRE community is that some of the people advocate living frugally forever, and the community and aren't aware of when the incoming snowball kicks in after 5 years. So the ones that focus on living frugally forever, sometimes they're not talking about growing their cash flowing assets. They're talking about you get to a level of income that supports you living very frugally, and then you do that forever. I like the idea of cash flowing assets where the income comes from a source like rentals, where in 10 years, the mortgages will stay the same, go up a little because of taxes and insurance, but the rents will continue to go up because of inflation. The rental income from properties you already own. So without even adding properties in 10 years, you're going to be making more. Another problem I have with the Trinity study is you get to that 4% of your portfolio as it's growing. $40,000 a year now, sure, you could probably live on that. $40,000 a year in 2042? I don't know. AKW, howdy. I think it's important to enjoy the fruits of your labor because if not, what's the point? Exactly. And Chester agrees with you. Yeah, the first few years though, staying frugal for me, took a little bit of discipline, living in an apartment and then another apartment and then a duplex, and stay in that duplex for a few years and then moving to a fourplex where living in a fourplex, being paid to live here. So technically, I guess on my housing side, I'm still sacrificing, even though I have 1,200 square feet in a garage, a shed, my own driveway, all to myself. I don't know that it's much of a sacrifice, but I could go out and buy, like I've thought a few times about buying a boat, living in the marina, and then having the rent from this unit cover the expense of that every month. But it's like a 2 to 10 year wait in the marinas around me, so I'm not doing that yet. But yeah, being frugal forever, what is the point? Bill O'Connell, howdy. Thanks for your videos. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And hanging out in the live streams. This helps me a lot. This is like my therapy. I get to talk about a subject that I like, and hopefully people take away something from it that makes your life better and gets you closer to making work optional. Phil, along with the insurance topic, just got some quotes from the quad I'm getting. Replacement cost $700,000. Cost of insurance is about $3,000 a year. Sound normal? Do you have flood insurance, earthquake insurance, or other things going on? And the only way to know if a quote from a contractor or an insurance quote or title company fees to know what's normal is to have a minimum of 3 quotes. I had quotes on insurance from my duplexes from $400 a year to $5,200 a year for the same coverage with the same provider. So you have a broker, like I use Geico, has a person that works in the office, right? That's not who does my insurance. My insurance goes through a company. That same company was available through State Farm for 10 times the cost, same policy, same coverage. How I knew what was the best price was by getting several quotes, not only looking at price, looking at the coverage, and then looking at the reviews of the company to see if a company charges a very, very low amount, they're probably making their money by avoiding paying out claims. If a company makes a bunch of money because they have a bunch of TV commercials and they have a lot of money for advertising, that's not the company I'm going to use either. So you want to do some research to your area, to what seems normal, by getting enough quotes for you to know what's normal in your area. So if I had quotes from 400 to 5,200 and you're at 3,000, in my area, that would be the median, but not the average. The average was probably closer to like 700 to 800. So it takes a little bit of research to get that one down. CJ. And my chat moved. My insurance on 2 duplexes that are $130,000 or $1,000 a year, Phil, so that doesn't seem too bad. No. And one of the things investors often forget is not every year, every now and then, call and get quotes. You got an insurance policy on a rental you got 5 years ago? That Do you even know what your current insurance rates are for that property? Because it changes every year and they just bill the mortgage company and the mortgage company pays them out of escrow. So your escrow might adjust to the new price and you might not have the best insurance price and you can change it every year it comes up, new policy. You can probably change it anytime, cancel out the rest of the year if you find a better quote. But I would try to time it with when that current policy ends. AKW, howdy. Question. When did you choose the lifestyle upgrade? Was it something you planned to do at a certain point? I'm struggling with the lifestyle upgrade. First 5 years didn't do any. Income snowball kicked in at 6 years, and it was the 8 year mark. That was when I took the trip to Colombia. 2018 Colombia, 2019 Thailand, 2020 nothing because of COVID, 2021 trip around the country. That to me has been the biggest lifestyle upgrade, and then more streaming services. I think there was a few years where my poor kids, we didn't have cable. Don't know. I don't think we even had Netflix for a while. We had. This is where I will always be apologizing for the rest of my life. Every single season of Friends on DVD, and they watched those. So my kids, I don't know if they're Friends fans, but they can quote Friends. Those first few years of being frugal were kind of rough, but it was around the 6 to 8 year mark where the snowball started to kick in. I had more money coming in from assets than I used to make as a cop. But it was around the 8 year mark that I was like, I'm going to get the car that I want. 2017 was the Corvette. 19 was the truck. I want the Tesla. I wanted the Tesla truck, original version, because it looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. Now it looks like a jacked up Subaru, and no thanks. So I'm not sure what the next vehicle will be. But a little bit after the income snowball kicks in and you start saving up the reserves and then you save up the down payments and you for whatever next asset, and you realize work is optional, you start to think, I have to find something to do with this money. And it's the weirdest problem to have, because if we go back to 2011, 2010, single parent, 3 kids, $17 an hour was my income, bunch of bad debt, to go to the point where it's worth the work it took to get to the 8 years where the thought starts to be, what do I do with this money? Like literally, let's say I got fired tomorrow, didn't have a job, and I never bought another investment property. I would struggle to think of how to spend the money. Weird problems. Janet, you have a question. Howdy. If you own a land and you are a first-time buyer, if you own land and you're first-time owner occupied, which construction loan would you use? FHA, any thoughts? So if you're using a construction loan like a 203K loan, I would find out if owning land, if you own a land, you're a first-time buyer, owner occupied, would you construction loan? So you're going to build on that property. I don't know. So I was thinking rehab loans, the 203K. I don't know that I'm the best person to answer that. I think Matt, the mortgage guy, would be the person to reach out to tell you which is your best loan product, because not only have I not done a build, I haven't even done a rehab. And so a build, so contact Matt, the mortgage guy, with his team, ask some questions. He's on one rental at a time too. He has a YouTube channel, literally Matt, the mortgage guy, and find out which loan product is the best for you. The builder that does the build for you might have some lending requirements too. So as you're shopping around for the build itself, ask them, do they have, I haven't done it, but I've heard that some people say, if you're going to use this builder, this is the lender you have to use. And I don't know if a build is done the same, but a 203K, rehab loan, you borrow the money for the rehab, but the bank keeps it, or it's in title, escrow with title. The contractor does certain amounts of the rehab, shows that it's done, gets paid that portion. Does more of the rehab, shows that it's done, gets paid that portion. So that contractor has to know how the system works in order to get paid, has to be not busy enough to want to take a rehab loan because of the way that the payment works. So some builders have only certain lenders that they work with. So I would ask that question too. Ask Matt, the mortgage guy, which type of loan you should go for, and then talk with the builder you're working with to find out if they have any requirements too. John W., howdy. Hope you're doing well too. Keith, time is at hand. When you get to FI, why quit? You will get bored. Trust me on this. Just keep stacking. How much is never enough? Yeah. The statistics on how many people die a couple years after retiring are they confuse me every time I see them. Unless you have something to go to, I don't know that I would retire. Unless you hate your job. A YouTube channel, it's not Our Rich Journey because they went to Portugal. It's someone else. It's a couple. They retired. I don't remember the name of their channel. I should know it because I've watched it a while ago. But they tried, they were so bored after retiring that they said, oh, let's go do some like minimum wage jobs just for something to do, work as a security guard at a concert or something else. And they said they were treated terribly because minimum wage jobs, for some reason, people that have them get treated bad. And they said, this sucked. Why would we do this? So they started volunteering. When you do volunteer work, the people that you're helping know that you can walk away and you're not there for compensation, and they were treated much better. So even in their retirement, they had to find something to fill the time with. I'm a gamer. That's a Dragonlance map on the wall. And there's a Forgotten Realms map underneath that one on the wall. Most gamers think, if I didn't work, I would game all the time. Most people who fish on the weekends would think, oh, if I didn't work, I could fish every day. When we leave work and we have an activity that is our escape from work, gaming, fishing, hockey games, whatever it is that you do, it's our escape from work. When you don't have work, and that 40 hours of work, 40 to 54 work, 10 to 15 hours in some cases for commute. So 60-ish hours become hours again every week. That activity you were escaping work with can become boring super fast. So even a gamer, I think after probably 4,000 consecutive hours without sleep, I would probably take a break. Chester, what are some ways you'd recommend to find real estate agents who are familiar with real estate investing, but not necessarily looking to invest in the best cash flowing properties themselves? I work with an agent who is also an investor and will buy every cash flowing property that he can, right? That's 1 or 2 a year. I buy 1 or 2 a year. I'll work with an agent that's buying the exact same asset class that I am, don't care. He can only buy so many a year. And when he finds good deals, he brings them to me because I don't try to talk down his commission. I want him to make his commission, so he's motivated to bring me the next deal. He's going to get his next investment property because he makes money when I buy a property. The commission he gets from the sale that I purchase is part of the money for his next down payment. It's really important to remember that your lender, your agent, your attorney, and your CPA are not your mentor. Your agent's job, even if they're an investor, is to close deals. Your lender is to sell loan products. Your attorney is to protect you. Your CPA is to get you the right tax benefits. Their job isn't to grow your portfolio, to increase your cash flow. That's you. You need to do the work to learn that. So I would work with a real estate agent who wasn't real estate investing friendly. As the problem with an agent being investor friendly or not investor friendly is the agent's problem. This is going to be a video. So I always remember pen and paper, but okay. I don't care what the agent does or thinks of me. When I find a property from their auto search that I want to make an offer on, they need to react quickly and they need to make the offer that I tell them. This is the amount, this is the down payment, this is the earnest money, this is whether it's owner occupied or not, all of the details. Here's my seller financing letter that I send with it. And the agent just needs to do it. I'm okay if the agent comes back and says, this is stupid, you shouldn't do this, or that's a great deal, whatever. I don't care what they say. I ran the numbers, I know the neighborhoods, it's my thing. If the agent goes, I'm not going to make that offer because I think they're going to get too many over asking prices. Last time I talked to that agent ever. No agent is going to tell me, I'm not going to make the offer because they can tell me, you're probably not going to get this. I'll make the offer. I'll do it as fast as I can for you, but you're probably not going to get it because they're going to get over asking offers. Great. But don't tell me you're not going to do it. That's why you're my agent. This is what I want you to do. I don't care how ridiculous it seems to you. This is what the offer I want submitted. So the agent might get frustrated because they think they're doing work that won't be productive. But I know my area. I know what offers are going to work. I want the work to be done on making offers. They're going to get their commission. Sometimes people have said, well, my real estate agent is making at one property where the agent walked away. No, that was totally wrong. The agent made $17,000, right? Split between them and their brokerage, then paid taxes on it. So the agent got about $5, however the taxes worked on that. But the $17,000 chunk of the purchase that went to that agent wasn't for that deal. It was for the 25 or 30 offers they made to get that deal accepted. So real estate investing friendly is their problem. If they don't want to do what you say, then you move on to the next one. That's what I would do to choose between agents. And I don't look at them as competition. I don't look at anybody that's in my area that I'm helping become investors as competition. I'm going to buy 1 or 2 properties in the next year of all of the transactions that are going to happen. I don't need all of them. I just need the ones I'm going to go after. And then I lost where I was at. Okay, Phil. Thanks, CJ. Darren, howdy. Chester, I remember you said that you have 3 agents looking for properties for you, 2 follow-ups. Do agents have pocket listings for investors? And which should investors rely on their network for properties? Michael Zuber made over 200 offers last year, got 6 properties, all off market, and none from the MLS. So through his network. Always work your network. Tell everybody what you do. I in my Facebook thread every now and then I'll put up, hey, I pay $500 or $1,000 if you find this type of property because this is what I'm looking for. Let everybody know what you're doing. I have a video coming out Thursday where Joe got a property for $160 because everyone he knows knew what he was doing. Ended up being a flip. He's walking away with a bunch of money, and that's what's going to be the thing that gets him into real estate. So you're always day one before you're an investor. This is what I'm looking to do because you never know what deal somebody's going to bring you. All of my deals so far have been from the MLS, from an auto search from an agent, not pocket listings. So just from the searches, I find them because the agent set up the auto searches, never think of me again until it's time to make an offer. Traditional lending. I want to buy, in the beginning, it was 1 property every 2 years. Then it was 1 year. Now it's every 6 months to a year. So I don't really need creative ways to find properties. If you're looking to do wholesaling or flipping, or you want to do the Burr method and just get the stack going, there's so many ways to find properties: driving for dollars, hitting the court records for recent divorces, that's a word, divorces, finding people who live out of state and have tax issues. Like there's skip tracing, all these types of ways to find deals, depending on how many you want to do. I'm comfortable looking at the MLS, watching the deals that come in. I do not check Redfin or Zillow because that's dated information, and I've never seen a property on there that I can make an offer on, because usually I see my properties that I've closed on show up pending a month later. And I do work with 3 agents, so I have multiple auto searches set up. So day one, I'm working your network, but that doesn't mean that's always where it's going to come from. Dale, howdy. Hi, Dion. How do you house hack with a family of 6, especially in Southern California? A house with an ADU would be the way I would go. You can have separate driveways. Your buildings don't touch, so you have no shared living space. You can use single family lending. So you can use a 3% down conventional loan if you haven't owned a property for the last 3 years. If you have owned a property in the last 3 years, a conventional loan will be 5% down. So if that's too much, depending on where you live, go FHA and do 3.5% down. I prefer conventional because mortgage insurance goes away once you hit 22% equity. If you put less than 20 down, you start with mortgage insurance. With FHA, mortgage insurance lasts the length of the loan. So until you pay it off or refinance, you're going to have mortgage insurance, or if you sell. But house with an ADU. With 6 people, that'd be the easiest way. You can look. I have seen some duplexes here, so I'd have to check your area. There were 4 and 5 bedroom each side duplexes. So that's an option too. But house with an ADU would probably be the way I would go for house hacking. That would be my number one. My number two would be use an owner occupied loan to move into a house for a year, live there for a year, and then buy another owner occupied house and rent out the first one. Watch the Joe Asamoah episodes. He's been on BiggerPockets a couple times now, at least twice. He does Section 8, 5, 6, and 7 bedroom houses in Washington, D.C., the other Washington, and he gets $5,000 a month per unit because Section 8 pays the area average per bedroom. So there might be a couple of options for you there. That's to buy the house, wait a year, buy a house, wait a year. House with an ADU, auxiliary dwelling unit. But to set up your auto search, nobody knows what the lender's going to call it. So you're going to have to use whatever colloquialism is used in your area. They might call it an ADU, which means auxiliary dwelling unit. So it's a second house on the same property. They might call it a DADU for detached auxiliary unit. They might call it a granny flat. They might call it a mother-in-law house. So your auto searches should include all of those until you see which one starts to pop up. Hope that helps. You're in an expensive area. You have a large family. That makes house hacking more important, not more difficult. Okay, it's the more expensive area you live in, the more impactful house hacking can be. If you want to live in the middle of Seattle, which, okay, but if you did, you could pay $3,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month for housing. If you can reduce that to $1,000 or eliminate it, that's a huge impact. If you live in Kentucky, where you can pay, $1,000 a month for rent, even if you eliminate that, it's only $1,000. The more expensive the area, the more impactful house hacking is. And I only said Kentucky because it was on Zuber's channel as one of the least expensive places to live. JLD Systems. Great plan, Dion. Howdy. Thank you. Ximena. Hola, mija. ¿Cómo está? Good afternoon. Rob. Howdy. God, you hate painting. You'd rather cut trees. I grew up cutting trees. I was the youngest of the brothers, so I was the manual labor. Literally, one of the top 3 reasons why I joined the Marine Corps is because it was easier than tree work. And painting, you're generally warm because the paint temperature has to be a certain degree. You're generally indoors. I mean, I'm outside on a ladder. It's a shoulder workout, but I will never touch trees again in my life. I don't care if the price of tree work goes up 10 times, I would pay it to have it done. We all have our things. Investing in rentals. You found your passion. I found my passion. Hi, Dion. I'm looking. Howdy. I thought I saw your name earlier. I'm looking into developing a 3.3 acre lot. What knowledge do you have with a construction loan? And if anyone can recommend a lender, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Just covered that like 10 minutes ago. I don't know if you were here for it, but I would check with Matt, the mortgage guy, to figure out what type of lending is the one you want to go with. Matt, the mortgage guy, has a YouTube channel. He's on One Rental at a Time often. He's part of the One Rental at a Time How to Get Started course too. And when it comes to building, I would look at your municipality and see how long permitting is going to take. That's a big impact. And then check with lenders, or not lenders, the construction company that you're going to have do the build. Sometimes they have lending requirements too on who they'll work with. And if that wasn't enough details, if you go back 10 minutes, I covered it a lot more in depth. Matt, the lumberjack landlord. Howdy. Now it's Tuesday. Super excited to be here. I enjoyed your video on One Rental at a Time today. I'm a little surprised that the comments were as nice as they were. I was expecting a few more offended people. Jones O, always a pleasure, Dion. Thank you for your time. Thanks, Jones, in case you have to take off. Happy trucking. CJ, at what point were you comfortable to splurge? I know you were talking a lot of FI tonight. For example, I have a good job. I currently make $50K a year from rentals that I don't need touch. I would take the $50,000 a year from the rentals. How much of your living expenses does that cover? That's what I did. I shifted to where my rentals pay for my life. My job paid for the next investing or the next splurge. Because if you need money from your job, you're not free. Once your rentals cover your cost of living, you're free. So if you can live on $30,000 a year, you have more money coming in from your rentals, and you have a job, that money can go to the splurge fund and the investing fund. If it costs you $80,000 a year to live, and you're making 50 off your rentals, you're not there yet. Get the passive income above your cost of living, and then the money from your job can be used for investing, saving, or splurging. I wouldn't splurge with money that I needed to live on. That would be how I would look at that. Kedma, howdy. And thank you. I appreciate your insight. Thank you. Rob, and my chat moved. Given any thoughts to retiring in a foreign country, given your desire to travel? Not entirely like become an expat, no. But Medellin, Colombia is a beautiful town. It's a really heavy expat. I might go there for like 3 months out of the year. Thailand for 3 months out of the year. Some other country. About a year ago, the Ukraine or Russia was on the top of my list of places to visit, and that might be different now. But 3 months or so in a different country, I kind of want to do it because I want to learn the culture and the language. Like I grew up in Southern California. I worked in the onion fields when I was 8, 9, and 10. I got my butt kicked because I was a little white kid working in the onion fields. You weren't supposed to be there. And I thought I spoke Spanish. I got to Colombia and I do not speak Spanish, because there's like Spain Spanish, Mexican Spanish, Portuguese Spanish, and like even all the words were different. So I want to immerse myself in the country to where I think less than 3 months, I wouldn't consider living there. Less than 3 months, I would think is a vacation. So at least 3 months in another country where the dollar's strong. And this is the struggle again, finding the country that still likes Americans and going there and understanding. Don't be the American. Don't be the loud, obnoxious person that causes all the problems. I want to go, and I spent 6 months learning Thai. Get to Thai, and everyone spoke English. Like, I want to be the person who's trying to learn the culture, not the person who's going there, I don't know, to cause problems or whatever. So not thinking about retiring in a country, but definitely more time in other countries. CJ, long story short, I want a Tesla and have for years. Just not sure when to pull the trigger. I know it's situational, but curious in your opinion, since you have a more expensive truck you don't need. Right. Well, so I have a more expensive truck I don't need that runs on diesel. 30 years ago, I wouldn't have wanted a diesel truck because I wouldn't have known where to get fuel at. Now there's diesel in enough places to where I don't even think about it. For me, pulling the trigger on the Tesla was the truck. I like the way it looked. They got rid of the look, so I won't get one. But when are charging stations going to be common enough to where you don't have to have fuel concerns? I can jump in my truck, drive to Florida. We did that in one of our different truck, not my personal truck, but in November, literally drove to Florida, diesel truck. I know that there's some map, and Tesla says you can drive across the whole country because here's all the charging stations mapped out. I'm not comfortable with that yet. Once that becomes more prevalent, then I probably wouldn't. That's more important to me on when I would pull the trigger on the Tesla. But you're thinking about when do you want to spend the money? When your rentals cover your cost of living and you have an asset that you would assign that income. That's how I mentally do it. I literally have a duplex that I call the vehicle duplex. Cash flowed a little less than $1,000 when I first got it, and now it's a lot more than $1,000. So the type of vehicle I can have can even increase because the rents go up there. If you can assign an asset to the vehicle, and the vehicle can fit within that price, then that might be the time to pull the trigger. Bill, howdy. Any pet policy opinions or advice? I don't have a pet video, but I do have a video on how to retain your tenants, how to keep your tenants. So there's a few things I look at in the property, and I'm not going to go through all of them because a lot of people watch my content. You've heard it before, but side-by-side units, washer, dryer, 2 more bedrooms and a garage, all the reasons to not have tenant turnover, right? I allow pets. First, it gets rid of the irritation of the BS fake printed out. I have a support animal that you have to either fight or not fight as a landlord. I don't care. You have as many support animals as you want because I have a pet policy. All pets on my properties are allowed. If they're going to have a pet, there is a non-refundable pet fee. This is not a pet deposit because by definition, and I got this from Mindy Jensen, by definition, a pet deposit has to be refundable. So you can't refundable deposit, but a non-refundable pet fee, and then a monthly pet charge. If the person has a type of pet that is typically called an aggressive breed or oversized or whatever, I will provide from my insurance company the statement that they will not insure that animal. I then require insurance from the person to cover that type of animal. It's never been an issue yet. I think the biggest pets we have is a German Shepherd, um, so it hasn't really been an issue. But people don't like to relocate animals. And even if that pet's human moves with the pet, that is a pet relocation. So if you allow pets in your properties, you increase the pool of people that want your properties because so many landlords don't want them. And I've never had pet damage. I have had a ton of little kid damage while they're still there. So it's not even on a tenant flip. There's this, I've got this one tenant who will not let me replace her doors. There's 3 interior doors that have holes with tape over them, and she doesn't want me to fix them because she says they're just going to break them again. So she has about I think it's $1,750 deposit. When they move out, the doors are getting replaced out of her money. But if I replaced them while she was there, she would pay for it, and then she would probably pay for the new ones when they moved out. Kids damage properties more than pets, and unless you buy a place in a 55 or older community, it's kind of illegal to say no kids allowed. So that's my pet theory. I allow it because it increases the demand on my property and helps limit tenant turnover. Eric, howdy. What are the specifics you look for in an umbrella policy must have? I had to hunt around for my umbrella policy because the first 2 or 3 I talked to required all of your properties were with them, your vehicle was with them, there's something else that had to be with them too. And so I had to shop around until I found one, Stillwater through Geico. And some years they offer it, some years they don't, where they didn't care how many properties I had. They didn't care how many were with them or weren't with them. They didn't care what my vehicle insurance was through. It was $2 million in coverage and when I first got it, it was like $550 a year. It's like $590 a year now. So $590 for $2 million in coverage. And all of my properties are listed in there, but I only have 7. So I have 16 units with 7 properties. So if you have a bunch of properties, your umbrella policies might limit how many that you can put in there. I've heard some limit you can only have 5 properties on one umbrella policy. So ask those questions. You want to make sure every single property is listed, because the purpose of the umbrella policy is if you have an injury at one of your properties where the damages are above the $300 in injury coverage that property has, then the umbrella policy kicks in. Hope that helps. CJ, accept pets. I agree. Bill, it makes your tenant base so much bigger. $250 non-refundable and $25 up for each pet. Those are the exact same numbers I use. $2,500 non-refundable fee and then $25 a month fee. Lumberjack landlord. Construction loan is likely only option. They will do 25 points down. So is that 25% down? Usually 60% on land, 75% LTV on new construction. Cool. Matt's the guy to ask how that happened because Matt is more of an investor. No, Matt is the entrepreneur investor. I am the lazy investor. Big difference. And my chat moved. Okay. Still hopeful. Howdy. Dion, you often say that when you identify duplexes, you aim for 10% cash on cash return. In this market, most duplexes or triplexes I see yield 4% barely. I wondered D, and then didn't come up again. Still okay. I shoot for a 10% return because normal average in my area was 7 or 8%. Last year, I started seeing more 5 and 6%. So I was looking at one that I thought, I'll buy this one because it's a 9%. Ended up being just barely over a 10%. So it still hit my metric, but not because that was what I was shooting for. I take this right out of the one rental at a time playbook of take 60 to 90 days to learn your market and know what average is. Figure out what average is, and average changes. The good or great deal is just better than average. So if you're seeing 4%, I would look for the 5.5%, 6% ones. Learn how to run the numbers well. Watch what's happening with rents, and how are you figuring out what area average rents are, because Rentometer is still dated. About a month ago, I was talking about how they shifted from a 1-year historical data system to a 3 month historical data system. But I have rentals in a town called Lacey, Washington. So you can go to Rentometer and look up Lacey, Washington, 3 bedroom. They'll say that they're renting out for 1,800. I just rented one out for 2,200. My friend just rented one out for 2,230 in that same area with tons of. I had 12 applicants the day I put it on apartments.com. It took her like 2 days because I don't know what the difference was, but all of a sudden she had a flood of people. So it was something with apartments.com. But 3 bedrooms, 2,200 versus a rentometer saying that the average is 18. So figure out how you're doing your area average rents by going to apartments.com, Craigslist, or Zillow, like you are trying to rent a place, to figure out what's happening currently with rents, and then project a little bit less than that for your cash flow. So find the average. So if you're saying you're finding a bunch at 4%, I would look for the 5 or 6%, maybe 6 or 7, maybe 6 would be a good average for that. You're looking for better than average when you can. Yeah. Keith. It is true that if you make under $75,000 a year, you can qualify for a USDA loan 1 mile out of any city limit. Great question. Don't have the answer. I haven't used a USDA and I don't know what their requirements are. So 2 things. One would be Google for the answer, but find a lender and ask them. That could be state and county specific. It could be federally, and it works the same everywhere. But find out from lenders what they have for options. That's what I would do there. North Colorado Dawn. I retired in 2007 at 43. I went to college from 2010 to 2014, went to law school for 2 years, bought real estate rentals to remodel and keep. I am busier now than I ever was as a building contractor. Right? So, yeah. But you don't have to work. So technically, that's where we mentally say we're retired. Technically, I think I retired in 2018. 2018 was when I was like, I don't have to work anymore, ever again in my life. I don't have to get out of work and go to bed. Get out of bed and go to work. Yeah, words are hard. But I still work because I still love my job. It just happens that I love the same job that I had before 2018. So I not only haven't not quit, but I haven't shifted jobs either. Work is a lot more fun when you don't have to be there. And Rob, gamers don't retire, they reset. That's very accurate. California Coastal Realty. Howdy. Reality. There you go. I like that one. The Realty. Anybody needs realtor in SoCal. There you go. Reach out. California Coastal Realty. You should put your email in the chat. Put a space before the .com at the end or it'll block it out. Janet. Howdy. Thank you, Lumberjack. REI Trainer. Howdy. Last time I was here, rates were 1% lower. Still making offers. Thanks for dropping knowledge bonus. Everyone smash that like button and subscribe. Thanks. I appreciate the likes if we get a few of those. I wonder how many do we have so far. I think it tells me if so we're at 31. Okay. If we get to 50 likes, I'll dye my hair blue. Not purple like Mike did. Here we go. Yeah, the rates have gone up. Prices have gone up. They're continuing to go up. They're only going to go up more. The longer you wait, the more you're going to pay. Deals are still out there, though. Mark, howdy. What is the difference with 3% conventional and 3.5% FHA? I'm in the process of looking at a pre-approval for FHA. So a lot of people associate FHA. I have a video on my channel called FHA versus conventional. Just check it out. But they think of FHA and they think first-time homebuyer because it starts FH, and that's not what it means. It's Federal Housing Authority. That's all FHA means. FHA is designed to get people on the property ladder who have a worse debt-to-income ratio and a worse credit score. So the threshold to get the loan is easier, right? The barrier to entry is lower. So you can have a higher debt-to-income ratio and a lower credit score and use an FHA loan. They do a 3.5% down and on single-family house. The benefit to FHA is that it's 3.5% down for a duplex, triplex, or fourplex. So those 3 is when FHA right now makes the most sense. If you haven't owned a property for the last 3 years, you can qualify for an actual first-time home buyer conventional loan, which will be 3% down. So it's less than FHA. Your debt to income has to be a little bit better and your credit score has to be a little bit better. So it's a little harder to get the conventional loan. You look more attractive to the lender. Mortgage insurance is calculated a little bit differently, and I don't have this memorized, but I'm pretty sure conventional, it's just a flat rate as you go through it. FHA has a larger upfront mortgage insurance payment, and then the rest goes through. The big difference between conventional and FHA is with FHA, you can only have one at a time. So you can get an FHA, live there for a year, refinance into a conventional loan, and then buy another one if you get enough equity into the property. So either the value has increased enough or you've paid down the loan enough. The problem with FHA is that mortgage insurance lasts the length of the loan. It never goes away. If you refinance, you don't have that loan anymore, so then it's gone. If you sell the property, it's gone. If you pay the mortgage off, it's gone. So no matter what, that FHA loan has mortgage insurance. The reason I like conventional is, yeah, it's only 3% down if you haven't owned a house in the last 3 years. If you have, then it's going to be 5% down for a single family house. This is still, to me, better than an FHA loan because if you put less than 20% down, you're going to have mortgage insurance. Once your equity gets to 22% with a conventional loan, mortgage insurance goes away without having to refinance, without having to sell, without having to pay it off. I'm trying to think if there's any other major differences between FHA and conventional. If you buy a duplex, triplex, or fourplex back in the dinosaur days, I purchased a duplex with a 5% down conventional loan. That doesn't really exist that much anymore. Lenders aren't all made the same, so keep looking for it. It could come up again. But currently, most owner-occupied duplexes are wanting 15% down. Triplex and fourplex, some lenders are wanting 20% down, even if you're going to live there. That raises the barrier to entry some. So FHA looks more attractive at that point. So if you're in the process of qualifying for an FHA, that doesn't mean you're locked into an FHA. You can also ask, what are the conventional options? Hope that helps. And sometimes I'm surprised with my memory issues that I'm able to retain as much stuff as I can. Still hopeful. I agree with your approach. Having just enough number of doors to cover expenses is awesome. Don't need 100. However, with such high prices, potential monthly cash flow is barely 100 to 200 a month. First year. Those were the two words you were missing there. Potential monthly cash flow is barely 100 to 200 a month. First year. The next year, or the next year, or the next year, rents are going to go up. Mortgages aren't going to go up as much. Your mortgage is 30-year fixed rate. So your insurance and your taxes might cost a little bit more, but rents are going to increase a lot. So I'm not sure if I've ever had a property that's cash flowed only 100 or 200 a unit even. It's always been at least 400. So you have to find the deals. But remember, so there's three factors that consider your yield, that can impact your yield. Price of the property, which are going up. So you might need to start looking at a bigger circle, expand your distance or your footprint of where you're investing, or change your asset type from single family to small multifamily, or house with ADU, or split level you can divide, or a basement that you can build out, or something like that, or add an ADU. But price is only the first factor. Second is interest rates. They are still under 5% for most. Some investors right now might be paying 5 point something. Most of my investment loans I purchased at 6%. So the last couple of years I refinanced to get them down to like 3.1%. But when I first bought, they were at 6%. So that's the first two factors. Price, rates, rents. Rents are skyrocketing. Wages set rents. What someone paid for their rent last month doesn't matter. Wages impact area average rents, and as those go up, we're seeing prices go up. Rates are going up a little bit, not as fast as prices, but rents are skyrocketing. I've got properties where 5 years ago I was getting 11 or 1,200, and now I'm getting 21, 2,200. So literally $1,000 increase in rent in 5 years. So really watch what's happening with rents. Don't invest in expecting a rent increase next year. Figure out where the rents are today, average a little bit lower than that to give yourself a bit of a cushion. Use that in your numbers. But the people who are going to run into trouble are going to look at 2020 and 2021 and say, well, rents in my area went up 20 to 30%, 2 years in a row. So if I buy this property and I only lose a little bit in a year with a 20% rent increase, I'll be doing great. Rents might plateau. That is not something we can count on happening in the future. I expect them to. And remember, I do have the crystal ball, so I've only been wrong about every time on anything I've ever tried to decide in my life. But don't invest counting on it. North Colorado on. Finally got 2 duplexes under contract. Thanks, Dion, for the kick in the butt talk. Nice. Awesome. Congratulations. Tell me how that goes. Lumberjack. Congrats. Dawn. Thank you. Rankin Properties. Howdy. Projects. Dawn. Lumberjack landlord. The 3 amigos have really helped me look past the forest for the trees. Awesome. That is why we put this content out. So many YouTube content creators are talking about crash correction, wait, buy the dip, wait for the whatever their story is about why you can't take action now. And it gets clicks because a lot of people are looking for that mental reason of why not doing anything now is a good decision. So they get a lot more views. The longer you wait, the more you're going to pay. Since 2013, prices have been above where they were in 2008. And a ton of people have been saying, this is not sustainable. People can't afford these prices. You have to wait for the crash. You have to wait for the correction. Eventually it's going to come. And now we're hitting 9 years where anybody who listened to them has missed out on 9 years of cash flow, appreciation, principal pay down, all of the benefits that comes from owning rentals, not wanting to own rentals. So yeah, in my life, there's never been a time where everybody thought, this is a great time to buy real estate. In 2011, when prices were rock bottom, people were scared. They thought, wow, real estate crashed. It's never going to recover. Real estate's a bad investment. Can you imagine having the money to invest in 2011 and not? And being here today going, how many deals did I miss because I listened to everybody say it was not the right time? It is never the right time to invest in real estate if you listen to the majority of people. There are a few people like Michael Zuber who are just talking one rental at a time, almost like dollar cost averaging with stocks. The most effective way to invest in stocks was dollar cost averaging over the long enough timeline. There's so many things about stocks to talk about, but if you just consistently buy the same amount, even when there's dips and increases or whatever, you're buying less when it costs more, you're buying more when it costs less. That was the most effective return over the long-term timeline. Rentals are the same. If you bought one rental every 2 years, it wouldn't matter where the price was because in 5 or 10 years, inflation is a thing. Even but when we don't have a pandemic, in those years where we don't have inflation, it's still or we don't have a pandemic going on, inflation is still a thing. Inflation is your friend when you own cash flowing real estate. I watched Mike and Matt talk this morning about how much inflation sucks. And yes, I have to be very sensitive. Inflation sucks unless you have cash flowing properties or cash flowing assets. If you have vending machines that you've already purchased, that machine isn't going to cost you anymore. The maintenance might cost a little more, but the things in it are selling for more. If you have real estate, rents are going up. If you already own them and you have 30-year or 40-year fixed rate debt, I mean, it sucks to think this out loud. I'm going to say it out loud. Inflation is your friend when you have cash flowing assets. The person who is impacted right now, who's trying to save to invest, when gas prices go from $4 a gallon to probably $10 a gallon, is going to really feel it. The person whose rents that they're collecting went from $1,100 a month to $2,200 a month is going to see gas prices go to $10 and think, oh, that really sucks for the tenants. But the person with the cash flowing assets doesn't care, doesn't feel it. So it was kind of fun if you go to one rental at a time and check out the first video today from Matt, the lumberjack landlord, and Mike. Trigger warning, just so you know. Congratulations, Don. Rob, my investment fund officially hates asbestos and lead. I prefer to go for 1979 or newer properties for that too, although I do have a 1929 property, but do a lead check to make sure what you're getting into. Is there an asbestos check? There probably is. I haven't done that one yet. I have several things on my thing. Like I don't want to buy in an HOA, and an HOA is a deal breaker to me faster than lead would be. Lead means how much is a lead abatement going to cost me in my cost to acquire? Does that still make this a good deal or a bad deal? An HOA says F off. Like that's the professional term to me buying in an HOA. CJ Underwood, thank you for the splurge explanation. Makes sense. Thank you. Lumberjack. Chat moved. Sorry. Knock it on. I'm very happy to hear that. So glad you got a couple. Makes me feel better about missing out on mine today. You didn't miss your chance, Matt. You missed that chance. REI trainer, Keith Hager. No, I don't think so. You can go to USDA website and enter your info and an address and we'll tell you. There you go. Thanks. Eric, howdy. And he took a message back to make me lose sleep tonight, and I will always wonder into the darkness of eternity what that message could have been. Don, lumberjack. That sucks. Sorry to hear that. Jones, who got his CDL. Congratulations. Rented one on Turo to go to Delaware. Superchargers are everywhere. You'll be fine. Okay, cool. Good. Dawn, I want a Tesla. Is that Plaid? When they can charge themselves with either an alternator or generator. Okay. Or Tesla. Yeah. Still hopeful. Also messing me with the retracted message. Jones, as a person with money, when more people can afford a Tesla, then they will have more chargers by then. Yeah. They'll become more and more common. Jimena, you like countries with pretty women. I travel with my brother for scuba diving. It just happens that there are pretty women there. It's so weird. It works out. It's just crazy. What are the odds? But you are right. There are beautiful women in Colombia. I'm sure there are beautiful women everywhere. But Dawn, I paid asking price on both duplexes and going to get a 27% return. Do the work, stick with it. Just email Dion or Matt. You will not be allowed to sulk. Exactly. Feel free to reach out with an email. Happy to help if I can. What I really like is, so you're getting a 27% return. You've been doing this for years. You know your market. You know the rents. You know what to study to get that. You know how to calculate that return. It's an amazing return. Congratulations. But what I really like that you said is you paid asking price for both. Redfin released a statement saying 52% of home sales have gone over asking price. And some other people will say, well, I can never buy a property because they're all going for over asking price. Remember, Redfin just said 48% of sales are happening at or below asking price. So, cool. Off my soapbox. Caleb, howdy. So I have 25,000, want to start in rentals, but I need to wrap my mind around how everything works before I put my money anywhere. One thing nobody talks about is, are you writing 16 checks a month for? Are you writing 16 checks a month for mortgages? Okay, I do talk about this often, happy to be transparent. 16 rental units, 7 properties, 6 mortgages. So I have 1 paid off property. So 6 mortgages going out. When I talk about I made $128,000 in 2019 or 2021, that doesn't mean I made $128,000. It means like almost $300,000 in money came in, but I had expenses. I had mortgages. And the mortgage is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So all of that I can consider the mortgage. I'm paying 6 of those. On the 7th property, I keep almost raising my middle finger because I got 7 properties with 6 of them. Then what makes the 7th number? But I'm not flipping you all off. I still have insurance and taxes as an expense on the property that doesn't have principal pay down and interest. So I still have expenses there. But then I also set aside money for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. I set aside 10% up to when my reserves hit their limit. When I had 7 units or less, I kept $10,000 in an account. So anything above that went into the investing fund. When I got more properties and more units, now I'm at 16 units, I keep $30,000 in an emergency fund that I do not touch. That is for, scorched earth, something bad is going on that I don't have the money to fix. So above that 10% for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy, or repairs and maintenance, and 5% for vacancy, so 15% doesn't then become my money to live on because I would need it, which means it's not going into the repair fund. That 15% goes to the investing pile. So the investing happens faster, but the profit is what's left after mortgage and setting aside for future expenses. That's profit. So I have 16 units. 7 properties, 6 mortgages, a little over 24,000 a month coming in, a little less than 11,000 a month going out in mortgages and setting aside for repairs and maintenance. So literally I break this down like number by number. I have a video on my channel called Cash Flow, How I Run the Numbers. Probably need to make another one on like a more recent one because that was made a year ago. You will have expenses. My brother actually has 10 paid off properties, calls me, and this is a familial term of love, a moron, because I have mortgages. Because he used a home equity line of credit, purchased a rental, and then focused on that HELOC to pay it off. Once it was done, rinsed and repeat to get to 10. Never done mortgages. Thinks I'm stupid for having mortgages. You have to understand debt. You don't want to be over leveraged. If you buy a property for $100,000 and you have $100,000 in mortgage, that means you're 100% leveraged. If the property value drops at all, or you need to sell, let's say it doesn't drop at all, it's worth 100,000, you need to sell it. It's going to cost you 6% in agent fees, right? You can't sell that without losing money. So I wouldn't want to be 100% leveraged. I like to be about 70% leveraged so that if rents dip or prices dip, I don't care. I'm not taking money out of my own personal pocket to pay the mortgage. My rents could go down 55%. So a little over 24 coming in, a little less than 11 going out, right? So if it dropped 50%, so down to 12,000, I could lose 50% of my rent every month. Still not touching my own money. That would suck. I like money. And when money comes in, it goes into the investing fund and the lifestyle fund and pays the mortgages and future expenses. I'm making no purple beard. I saw it. Purple hair. Gotta be really clear. You just have to look close. So I need to make a video on, and we got the name, I have it written down. Expenses do not impact cash flow. And I think it was Chester that gave me the name, and I'm going to make the video. When you have an expense in real estate, you have to replace a roof. That doesn't come from my cash flow. Every month when the rents are coming in, I'm setting aside 15% for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy, right, into the reserve fund, which takes up to 10,000 when I had 7 or less units, and that 30,000 for 16 units. That money pays for the roof. And then the 15% that was going to the investing fund is channeled into that account until it hits 30,000 again, which is generally how it would work if the investing fund was ever depleted. Like the next time I buy a property and I'm going to move the money from the bank into the property and I don't have a lot of money to pay for the roof, that 30,000 would pay for it. Generally, I would just pay for it out of the investing fund. It's all semantics at that point. It's just in your head. But my cash flow never changed, even though I spent $15,000 one time on a roof for a fourplex. My cash flow was not impacted because that money came out of the account of the rents that are set aside for future expenses. Yeah. So not 16 checks for mortgages, 6 checks. And still hopeful, still messing with me. So plenty of beautiful, good-hearted, and smart women in our lovely USA. Absolutely true. But my people chooser is broken, so I'm not allowed to do that anymore. I would never wish me on any girl. Eric, kids do more damage than pets. You sound like me. I'm especially looking for 1 to 2 bedroom houses to avoid a whole family destroying everything, plus easier to fix the property if needed. Yep. So I have 16 units. How many? I have 1, 2 properties with kids. I think that's it. And not by choice, that's just how it worked. One of them is Section 8, one of them is not. One of them is the one with the doors. My other tenants, I've had tenants send me pictures of, I redid this or I fixed this, and I have one I need to talk to because he did something on the roof, which you should let your tenants sometime have to go talk to him face to face and say, hey, that was really cool. Don't do that again. But the ones with kids are the ones that need the most work. He has purple beard. Mike got away with dyeing his hair purple because if you have purple hair, people see that. If your beard is a weird color, I wouldn't want someone thinking I'm still wearing a mask after the mask mandate is gone. Adam, howdy. Why would you not use a VA loan over the conventional loan? There is no PMI on a VA loan. Okay. I did not use a VA loan. I have it available. I was in the Marines for 6 years, got out, honorable discharge, have the VA loan available. First, I don't want to be 100% financed. So if you don't put anything down and you don't have PMI, VA loan, I could do 5% down like I did on the conventional, right? So there is a reason to use the VA. You have no PMI. But I had the money for a down payment. And even with the PMI, it reduced my housing expenses from 1,500 a month down to 300 a month. So saving it was like 67 a month for PMI, wasn't worth it for me because I want my VA loan in my back pocket so that when the perfect up to 4 units, actually in VA loans, if you talk to your lenders, sometimes they'll go to 5 units. So it's really weird. VA loans, the one time it doesn't have a 4 unit cap, it has a 5 unit cap. Could be county specific because it's Thurston County where my lender said I could, Pierce County, they said I couldn't. So I don't understand the metric to it. I have that available. I have my VA loan in my back pocket. Since my first property, I've been able to save up the down payment for each property, doing 20 or 25% down because I want to keep 30% equity. The goal is 70% leveraged. I'm at like 52 or 3 now percent leveraged. I could buy my next property 100% leveraged and still not be at 70% as an overall. So my next purchase, I have the down payment now to buy my next fourplex. After that, my next fourplex might be my VA loan, and I'll owner occupy, move into one of the units again to do that. But I like having it in my back pocket as an option for when the deal of the century pops up and I don't have a down payment. So there's a couple reasons, and every situation is different. It might make more sense for you to use your VA loan. For me, it wasn't the best option. Keith, I'm going to retire, but not today. Jonathan, Lucas, howdy. Hey, you're in Louisiana, trucking at the moment, gonna invest in real estate, but not today. Awesome. Cool. When I first started working at the truck driving school, I liked teaching. I like taking knowledge from my brain and putting it in someone else's brain, especially in truck driving, teaching a career. But I would see an old Harbor Freight Lines or an Old Dominion truck driving by, thinking that guy's listening to a podcast or a book on tape, getting paid a bunch of money to just sit in the truck and listen. And I had this little bit of jealousy. Like I missed driving. I never drove over the road. I've only driven local, right? So I just like local driving jobs. But then you flash forward to that would be great, but that's a job. So financial freedom told me that I liked driving because of all of the options for work. It was the easiest way for me to make money and enjoy my job. So it checked off those boxes. Kind of like people go, what is your dream job? Me, angry cop. But dream job, no. Job means pay you to be there because it sucks. Dream means something you want. And what do I want? At the time, if I had to have a job, driving looked attractive. But as soon as I can make it to where I don't have to have a job, I like what I'm doing now because I just play at a truck driving school. The more I play, the better the driver becomes. That opened my eyes to the job I actually wanted to do. Chester, what was the kick in the butt you had to give North Colorado Dawn? More curious than anything. I don't know how to put it into words. Let me see. Same thing I would tell anybody, especially if you've been in this for a while, you have the experience, you have the knowledge. Why are you not taking action? Like every now and then I'll go into work on the giant whiteboard and just write, what are you waiting for? I'll let everybody interpret that themselves. Is it to get to work? Is it to quit your job? Is it to ask for the promotion, ask for the raise? Is it to whatever the thing is, what are you waiting for? So Don, what was Don waiting for? He knows what to do. He knows how to do it. Still hopeful. Dion, duplexes or triplexes I see in my county that cash flow are in the Class C, blue-collar, working-class neighborhoods sprinkled in with low-income earners. Do you advise searching in these areas? I do not give advice, but those are the only areas I look in. I do not want Class A or Class B properties. I don't like that it's higher maintenance tenants. I have Class C tenants who fix stuff. I have to tell them, don't fix stuff. Call me. That's my job to pay to have that fixed. You're paying rent for me to fix the place. I know that Jonathan Twombly, who goes on one rental at a time, says that he prefers A and B areas because in a recession, they're less likely to be hit than C areas are. You know, your cops get laid off, your maybe nurses get laid off, your teachers get laid off more than A and B areas do. And in his area, That might be true. But in my area, the people who work at Boeing rent your A and B areas, your houses. And Boeing does massive layoffs every year and a half, whatever new cycle's coming through for what they're building. So there's a lot of turnover in this area for A and B. Um, my area has a base, a port, two large, probably more, but two large hospitals, um, several colleges, Amazon terminals, Boeing is here. So there's a ton of demand for Class C. Uh, that's the areas I'd prefer to go into. So I do not give advice, but that is what I do. REI Stoners. Do you see more tenant turnover when there's only one bathroom? In 10 years, I've had 2 tenant turnovers. Let's think of how many units I have that only have one bathroom. So I have 16. That duplex is one bathroom each side. That duplex is one bathroom each side. I don't see a difference. My turnovers were at the house and a 1.5 bathroom unit. So, no. I think if you had 3 or 4 4 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, you have families sharing it. Yeah, you're probably going to see more turnover. That would be my guess. But like someone else said earlier, you preferred 1 or 2 bedrooms. Almost all of mine are 2 bedrooms. I don't think I have any 1 bedrooms. No, not really. I have one that has 1 bedroom and a den, but it has 2 bedrooms. Yeah. So for a large number of bathrooms, I would expect more turnover. For 1 bathroom because of time sharing. So yeah, still hopeful. In a recession, would owning a duplex in a lower income area be riskier because tenants have retail or service jobs? It hasn't been my experience. In my areas in 2009, 10, and 11, rents went up because demand went up. You had people who lost houses in a recession become renters, so demand goes up. And it is a lot easier to replace a retail job where you're making $15 to $20 an hour than it is to replace an IT job where you are making $150,000 a year. There are more types of jobs that pay that amount. I left law enforcement where I was making, I think, like 21 bucks an hour or something, to truck driving where I was making almost 35 bucks an hour driving for Oak Harbor Freight Line as a line haul driver. I was on track to make 115,000 that year, whereas a cop I was making 48 plus some overtime. So there are more Class C type of jobs for that region. That's why I like Class C areas. There's more options to work to make that amount of money. And especially in dual income houses where people are paying, when I first started buying, it was $1,100 to $1,500 for rent. Now it's, do I have any under $1,500? I have a couple at $1,460, but most of my rents are above $1,500, some are above $2,000. With 2 incomes making $15 to $20 an hour, it's not hard to be able to manage that with 1 income and unemployment while they get back to work. Where if you're in Class A or B and all of a sudden a $150,000 a year job drops to $700 a week for the unemployment here in Washington, that's a big hit to take. I would be happier with Class C properties. Jonathan, make sure I'm at that place there. Jonathan Lucas, by the way, I'm doing your second job history and I'll be qualified for next year. Hope price is still reasonable. Second job history. So you're doing your job history. While you're waiting, I would contact my friend Alex with Certain Lending, who does asset-based lending, and look for, I think it's 1 to 4, where they base it on the property. Your credit score matters. Your income, your work history doesn't matter as much. The lending rates are a little higher, but you could still be looking for properties now. Eric, I for sure want to be like you when I grow up. I actually don't know what I want to be like when I grow up yet. I'm still working on that. Caleb, damn, so you need to be really good at managing accounts and payments. Thanks, Dion, for your time. I truly appreciate it. I don't know that you need to be really good. So I have 16 rental units. Here's what my business structure looks like. 1 checking account, 1 savings account, 1 credit card, an Excel spreadsheet with a tab for income and a tab for expenses. I send the Excel spreadsheet to my CPA and I sleep like a baby. That's it. You can make this as simple as you want. You can make this as complicated as you want. No LLCs. A long list of reasons why I don't have an LLC. My entire business fits in this book. doesn't even need to. This is just like a vision book, like I want to invest more. And I'm going to be doing a video soon on this book, and then I'll actually be doing a breakdown of what's on the pages. Each property has 10 pages. The vision book, the goal is there's a lot of 10 pages in here. So I want to fill this book up, right? Kindergarten simple. This doesn't have to be a very complicated thing. You buy a property, you have insurance on it, you pay the mortgage, you collect the rents, you learn to run the numbers. That's the hardest part, is learning to run the numbers, because you have to figure out area average rents, how much is a mortgage going to be, how much are expenses in your area. I mean, there's things to it, but you don't have to overcomplicate it. And so, do I go with the vodka or the Mountain Dew vodka? You can always tell by the face. So we're at 2 hours, and I needed a drink. That's how long the throat lasted. And that just makes your legs go. I don't know why it does that to me. Okay. I see that Julie's leaving. Thanks for hanging out. Eric, for sure, want to be like you. Want to grow up. Okay, damn, you need. Nope. Jones-O, did you choose to go bald, or did bald choose you? I'm beginning to recede. I, in my 20s, wish my hair had gone this way. I wanted gray hair young. And when did I start losing my hair? I should put up pictures of it. Until about 35, because I went 6 years in the Marine Corps without a hair, with a haircut every Monday. As soon as I got out, I didn't have a haircut again for decades. My hair was to my belt, super curly. Looks like I had a perm, but it's like long and curly. But when it started to recede, when did I do it? And I had a friend going through some health concerns and said I would shave my head. And when I did, I was like, guess I would be like this forever. So it's been a while now. When did I? 10 years almost of that. So 40. That's when I gave up on the hair. Jones, next short Tuesday live, let's talk politics. Talking politics will kill your channel. I have a friend who had a YouTube channel that was getting over 60,000 views per video. Now he gets 300 or 400 because he made one video. He made a video where he talked about, I got vaccinated because I want to be able to do all of these things, but I don't think I should be forced to be vaccinated. He said that, just a sentence in the video. Everybody who believed in the vaccine stopped watching his channel. Everybody who couldn't believe he got vaccinated stopped watching his channel. 60,000 views a video to 300 views a video. So no, we will not be talking the politics on this channel. I'll leave that for Matt. Still hopeful. I love hearing the real life investing stories about your brother and his aversion to debt. I see myself in him, which has held me back for so many years. Thanks. Thanks to education, and I know better now. Right, and we each have a version we're coming from. So yeah, I've talked about my brother, and have you seen Still Hopeful, where my brother said one thing that stopped me from investing for a decade? So if you have heard me, just say yes. If you haven't done that, let me know, and I'll go over that story too. But he said one sentence, and it stopped me from investing for over 10 years. Julie, hi Dion, I'll catch you tomorrow. So that was when she was leaving. Chester, gentle nudge, curious about a video on what neighborhood classes are new investors. So it's something subjective, relative, least useful, or a tidbit of knowledge. I do want to make that. Why am I getting phone calls? The tenant wants to pay me rent. I said yes. Sorry, I want to take a note on that. And it was, Class of Neighborhoods video. Okay. I talk about that a lot. I usually refer people to Brandon Turner's write-up on Class of Neighborhoods, but I need to do the research, and I think I've said that before on a live stream because it's triggering a memory where I need to make that video. But thank you. Now I have a note. Still hopeful. Preach. Love it. Thank you. Great tips. Thank you. Thank you. Chester, I like that. What are you waiting for? I think I might be trapped in that area of uncertainty of there's no blueprint for what to expect once you've stroked the check for a down payment. I personally also believe I've got my systems fully in place before I'm confident enough to actually invest. I believe in the 7 P's to success. Prior proper planning prevents poor performance. Um, yes, analysis paralysis is a thing. If you invest the time to learn a skill or a tactic, you're damaging yourself if you don't then use that knowledge. Not only are you not taking advantage of the skills you've learned, but you spent the time to learn the skills. That time you're not going to get back. My fear, I think my camera keeps shifting. Weird. Okay. My fear is being trapped in a job you have to do. Like I want to work because I like it, not because I have to. And that kind of got me over the fear of taking action. Jones, oh. Okay, 100,000. Can I pay you to make a dedicated live for CDL talks, or maybe make a channel for your school? Do you have all your endorsements? Do you have a Twix card? I think I'm gonna make a channel for commercial driver school, and talk CDL stuff, because that is not real estate related, and that way I can go in a video like this. Hey, if you have CDL questions, here's a link to the channel where I talk that stuff. But yeah, no, a video on that would be good. I'll answer your questions really quick, but in the future, those will be questions for the CDL school. I was a company driver. I have tried owner operator, failed twice. Once because my ex emptied the wages and taxes account, and second time because I didn't try to work on the business myself. So I prefer to be a company driver. There you go. Caleb, wow, really? I'm making it way tougher and complicated than it needs to be. I think you are, and I think most of us do. What is your email address, if you don't mind? It's really complicated. Always, anybody watching, feel free to email me. I try to answer everyone. If I ever don't answer an email within like 3 days, email again, because I get a lot and they get missed. I'm happy to answer questions. I like questions in the live streams because we're at 2 hours now. My goal is to go at least 3. These live streams go on as long as the questions do, but sometimes you guys run out of questions. So the live streams don't last so long. Once a month, I have a live meetup to go to. So my live stream is only about 2 hours long. But my goal is to do 3 hours of sharing information. So I appreciate the questions. But if you have one where it's a little too personal or a little too nuanced or detailed, email it and I'll do my best to give you a good answer. Jones, must have patience, save, look for deals. Patience is the hard part, especially in the beginning. If an investor like me or Matt the Lumberjack Landlord or Michael Zuber lost everything and started over, we have almost certainty of the timeline of what it would take to reach financial freedom again. So it'd be very easy to have patience for 4 to 6 years before we knew this income snowball would kick in. But if you're watching and you're learning and you haven't done it yet, even with somebody saying, here's how we did it, here's the barriers we had in place, a single parent, not a lot of income, a lot of bad debt, whatever the barrier is, we were able to get through it to get here. And we're telling you step by step, here's how you screen tenants, here's how you figure out your yield, here's how you find an area to invest in. Like, we're literally spelling out the stuff. You don't have that certainty that we do that it will happen. That's the struggle with patience. Really wise person once told me, you are going to be alive in 5 years. You might as well start investing like it. That counts even if you don't have the certainty. Hans Solo, howdy. And then my chat moved, which I like because that means people are putting in questions because we need more questions. Howdy, love your passion. How much reserves do you recommend to cover maintenance vacancy for 10 single family properties all built in 2018 or later? So 10 single family houses means that you can have 2 or 3 water heaters break. You can have 1 or 2 roofs go bad in a year. You can have damage that happens to a roof. It's not always age. It can be something else. It can be a windstorm, and you might not want to do an insurance claim. It can be a couple of things. Minimum. So I do very simple. When I had 7 units or less, I kept $10,000. But I had some older properties. Most were built between 80 and 92. So I kept 10,000. I would think that any investor, I don't think a real estate investor should have reserves of less than 10,000. That might be, some of that is in a retirement account. Count 50% of that as a reserve. Your lender's going to require reserves. I've had some lenders say they want 4% of your gross value of your properties in a reserve. I've had other ones say we want 3 months of all of your mortgage payments in a reserve. So they kind of have a math calculation for qualifying for the next loan. But if you have 10 and they're fairly new, which a lot of people think, I have a newer property, I can do less for maintenance. No, a brand new HVAC built 2 years ago is going to cost you a lot more money to fix and maintain than a house built in 1992 that has baseboard heat. So it's not always true that a newer place is going to cost you less. So my reserves with 10, I'm trying to do the math to try to give you a fair answer without knowing enough details, because a lot of it comes down to something else that impacts my reserves. I had 10,000 at 7 or less. I have 30 at 16. While I'm working, I have a W-2 job. If I stop having a W-2 job, my reserves are probably going to come close to doubling. They would go to 50,000, which is, I think, the number that Matt, the lumberjack landlord, and Michael Zuber keep in an account that they just don't touch. That's their literally scorched earth. Something really bad happened. That money's there for that. But while I'm working, while I have that consistent W-2 income, I'm comfortable with 10,000 or 30. So 10 single family houses, 2018 or newer, I would probably have 20, 25,000 in a reserve, so that lenders are happy, make you bankable for the next one, depending on what your mortgages are. And because it's Murphy's Law. It's Murphy's fourth corollary. Murphy's Law is, if anything can go wrong, it will. The fourth corollary is, if a sequence of events can go wrong, they will, and in the worst possible order. So you're not going to have a water heater break. You're going to have a water pipe break on the second floor that floods the wall, and then you have multiple, it's just, be ready for the expenses to pile up, because you have more opportunities for those expenses to happen. 20 to 25,000 be my guess. G. Boland. Howdy. Hey, Dion, is it possible to share your spreadsheet? Yes, I put my email in the chat. Email me. I will send you my kindergarten version of my spreadsheet. It is so basic. You'd be like, this is what he uses? Yes, it's what my CPA wants. It has everything that he's looking for. So absolutely, email me. I'll email you back. If I was tech savvy, I would be able to link it into YouTube where you could download it. I could make a website someday. I may make a website, but not today. I actually have a friend at work who might make the website for me. So if it sucks, we can blame her. Jack D. Howdy. So you look like you're 35. I guess it's the baldness. How old are you? I like to tell people I'm like 67, so I look like the fountain of youth. But now I'm starting to get closer to 67. No, so I think, what am I? I'll be 52 this year. So that is how old I is. Thank you for 35. That was what that waitress guessed the other night when we were at the live meetup, but she was looking for a tip. So, of course. Still helpful. You heard it. Good. Okay. Kevin, howdy. I have a brother who's 24, no college, and finding his way in life. If he's interested in driving a truck, where is a good starter resource to learn more? Email me, and I will do the best to direct him to how to get the CDL, which companies to avoid, which schools to avoid, what type of work to look for, what the different types of work are. CDL doesn't always mean truck driving job. It means job that requires CDL. It could be managing drivers. It can be working for a city, municipality, a county. Tons of jobs where you might touch an equipment truck once or twice a year, but the CDL opens up the job. So definitely email me, and I will connect him with that. And this points out another reason why I need to make a channel for commercial driver school, which is the school I work at. Happy to help too. I actually run a nonprofit, TPS, Transportation Placement Services, and I named it that so I can get TPS reports. Everybody who laughed just showed that you're over 30 is showing. Happy to help people find work. That's actually what it does. We help people find jobs in transportation for free. It's 501c3. Don't charge a penny. So Caleb, you're welcome. Matt, lumberjack. Everyone in politics is fair game. If they lie, I will say my piece on issues that affect people that may not have the time to cut through things. Government, by the people, for the people. Peace. Does that mean you're out? Thanks for hanging out. If you watched Matt's video on one rental at a time, it was great. Mike goes, what did he say? I'm not going to go there. Matt said, if you voted for her, you're a moron or an idiot or something like, yeah. ADBR. Howdy. Are you still actively buying multifamily? I have a property that has appreciated by 80 grand in just 1 year. Should I sell? Okay, I do not give advice. I would not sell. I have properties that have appreciated hundreds of thousands of dollars. We had 24% appreciation in one of the counties I have here, and when it started 2 years ago, it was a $600,000 property. So 24% times 600,000 times 2 years. Not even thinking about selling. You have a cash flowing asset. Appreciation happens, great. Rents are going up. 30-year fixed rate debt stays the same. Your income is going up. Don't worry about what that could be. That is called return on equity. And some people do worry about that, but not me. My investing strategy is to put money to work in a property. No touchy. Leave it alone. If you sold it, what are you going to do with it? Richard Fain, and I'm going to make a video on this too. Richard Fain. I watch his content, guy's super relatable. It's like, if you were going to say cool investor, that's Richard Fain, right? So I watch his stuff. This guy's just cool. 2 weeks ago, he made a video. He made 2 videos, and I was like, oh my God, what are you doing? He was like, I'm going to sell everything and buy stocks. And then he goes, I'm going to sell my house and rent for 2 years and then buy when interest rates go up because that'll cause prices to come down. He said those words. I messaged on his thing. I doubt he read it. He's got a ton of subscribers and he sees it all. But I was like, oh my God, what are you doing? You're making the hugest mistake ever. Interest rates going up doesn't impact prices at all. Wages set prices. Prices are going to go up. He finally, yesterday, came up with a video, maybe it was this morning, where he's like, hey, here's why I can't sell my house. He was expecting to pay $2,500 a month in rent to live in something even close to his house. Everything is 35 or 4 grand. He was talking about prices are continuing to go up, so it doesn't make sense to sell and then buy later. He literally broke down the math on, okay, that would be a dumb thing to do. So even though you've gained appreciation on this property, the question when it comes to, do I sell? Do I take out a cash out refinance? Do I take out a home equity line of credit? The first question before you decide which one of those you're going for is, where would I deploy the funds to get a return that is so good to justify the time, effort, and energy it takes to manage the new asset and possibly the debt on the new asset if you use this as a down payment, and justify the debt on the thing. When you sell, you're going to be 1031ing, so you're creating a tax event that you're delaying. You're going to have agent selling fees. You're going to have the cost of purchasing. When you buy a property, the down payment isn't the only thing. You need costs for immediate repairs, closing costs, the expense of purchasing. Versus, what are you making in rents now? Even though it's appreciated, what's happening with the rents there? So I don't give advice, but in that situation, I would not sell. And I am actively buying properties. I am currently looking for a fourplex that I'm hoping costs a little more than $1 million. I want to put my money where my mouth is. I've talked several times about one of the things I learned about halfway through my investing journey was I kept trying to buy cheap properties. And Michael Zuber says it great. You can go broke buying cheap. As long as the return scales with my purchase, I want to buy the most expensive property I can find. As long as the return scales with it. I don't just want to pay more because I can pay more. But if I can get a 10% return on a $300,000 duplex or a 10% return on a $1 million fourplex, I want the fourplex. We can have 10 mortgages in our name before we have to go to commercial lending, which usually has worse loan rates, worse percentages, sometimes isn't fixed rate debt, a couple of things that suck. So for those 10, I want the most expensive properties with the best yield. So there's a caveat on there, with the best yield that I can get. I'm at 6 mortgages now with 7 properties, which means I have 4 mortgages to go. I want them to be very expensive with a good return properties. So I'm still hunting. John, Texas. Howdy. So Dion, I saw your LLC debate with the attorney on Zuber's channel. You seemed pretty fired up. Is the LLC thing, or do you really not like attorneys? No, I like Riley. I think he's cool. I like attorneys. I liked going through 2 divorces where I did not have an attorney, and I kept the house in both and kept custody of the kids in both. I like debating attorneys. I liked being able to tell an attorney that since he goes to court and his job is to debate people, he's technically a master debater, and I'm just a baiter. Um, that was fun making that video. I was super glad Rylas stepped up and did it, because at least Rylas was like, "Oh, what's your opinion? This is my opinion. That's your opinion. Great." There was another attorney that attacked me in the Facebook group, hadn't even watched my LLC rant video, just saw the thumbnail and said, "This is the biggest load of BS." And he didn't abbreviate. And he just went on and on and on about how bad an idea that is. And I'm like, that's not the guy to debate, because there's probably some people watching right now who invest in crypto, right? Like, it's just a thing. There's stocks, business, crypto, real estate. We all have our thing that excites us, right? Invest in what excites you. You're more likely to stick to a plan that you're emotionally invested in. I say it all the time. But if I say, I don't want to grow a business, somebody that owns a business doesn't get threatened. They go, huh, less competition. If I say, I don't want to buy stocks, somebody who invests in stocks doesn't go, you're threatening my source of income. They go, oh, less competition. When I even hint, I don't really like crypto. I don't want to invest in crypto. I might buy some when it's a diversification of my assets or something, but I'm not buying it as an investment. A crypto investor usually gets like spun up because I'm threatening their source of income. The valuation of crypto is based on demand. And if I hint at just a little less demand than them, then their income can come down. An attorney who hears somebody say, I don't think you need an LLC, I'm threatening his source of income. An attorney's job is to create conflict. The more conflict you can create between your client and that client, the more billable hours you're going to get. So when I say you don't need an LLC, because if I was going to do an eviction, I'm going to go file everything on my own. It's right there at the court. It's this much money. I know the timelines. Don't need an attorney for that. That threatens his income. And that guy was not going to debate on facts, logic. It was all going to be emotion. But Rylas came on and he was like, here's my thoughts. Here's my opinions. It was great. So I get emotional on that because I know that there is somebody losing money because they think they need an LLC. They don't know how to pay themselves from an LLC, so they don't commingle finances. They don't know how to get lending when that LLC doesn't have 2 years of work history. They don't know all of these barriers that are putting in their way to buy a property. And I'm spending. So I have a W-2 job. I run a nonprofit. I self-manage 16 rental properties. I'm not making a YouTube channel for income. It was actually my plan not to monetize this channel. I just want to share the information to help people reach financial freedom. The only reason I monetized the channel is because in October 2020, YouTube said they were going to put commercials in all videos, even on non-monetized channels. So I monetize so I can choose the types of ads. So if you've ever watched my content, you'll notice that there's little banner ads and all these kind of things, and skippable commercials. There are no commercials where you can't skip it, right? So that was important to me. So that's the reason this is monetized. I'm not making hardly anything from YouTube. So when I make an LLC video, I'm sharing my time. You know how much time it takes? About 20 to 30 hours a week for me to do YouTube. It's almost as much as I spend at my job, right? It's way more than I spend managing my rentals. It's like 2 hours a month compared to 30 hours a week to do the live stream, which is one of the easiest ones. This is 3 hours. To make a 10-minute video, the first couple of months took 10 hours. I got it down to about 5 hours to make a 10-minute video to share this information. And there are people saying, well, you don't want to invest unless you have an LLC because you need that asset protection, which it doesn't do unless you have partners. And then you got to have an LLC so you get those tax benefits, which there are none at all. So it frustrates me that I'm spending all this time and effort and energy to try to get you guys to reach financial freedom. And other people are putting barriers in place. It's like when all the three amigos, all of us get just as spun up when we hear, well, I'm not going to buy now. I'm going to wait for the crash because I saw this other YouTube video that says wait for the dip or wait for the correction. And we're like, we're telling you every day, the longer you wait, the more you're going to pay. And you can hear it in our voices when we're like, oh, listen to Matt. He's like, I said something like, oh, I bet there's a lot of YouTube channels you guys would like to debate. And Matt goes, I'd like to have a cage match with one of them. And I'm like, okay, that's one you care about, right? That's where I'm coming from on the LLC thing. And I really did kind of want to wait until I had 10,000 subscribers because you guys are great. The people who watched the video, there was one negative comment that got taken down by a friend of mine who I've known for 30 years. That was the one negative comment. The only real negative comments happened on Facebook from the other attorney who hadn't even watched the video. So it's not that I don't like attorneys. We have some for the CDL school that we use for different things that they've been great. Johnny Cashflow Ramirez. Nice name. Howdy. What's up, real estate freaks? We still got the one O-Rats for the people who watch one rental at a time. The Lumberjackians. I will take the real estate freaks. I like it. Bobby. Howdy. You're a truck driver. Your credit score is 620 to 650. Want to buy in Washington. Any advice? I'm living in a company semi going over the road and how to prepare. First, you can work at our CDL school. It's consistent income. You can be home every night. We have benefits and a retirement plan, which retirement plans suck, but we still have one. Any advice? So I would reach out to my email, which was in the chat. I can connect you here in Washington with my lender, my agents. Your credit score 620 to 650. You can qualify for most loan products. As you improve that, you'll get better loan options. And I definitely would recommend a form of house hacking for your first purchase. You don't have to, but just for me, it makes so much more sense, especially if you're not there all the time. Yeah. I have a video called Before Buying a Rental, What Do? And it'll tell you all the steps of what you would do before you buy that first property. Chester, you missed the LLC debate with Rylas. Do you know the name of the video? I'd like to see it. It is on One Rental at a Time. If you go to his channel, Michael Zuber's One Rental at a Time, click on the actual video and scroll over to the one side where it says videos, and you'll go down. I don't know that I know the name of the video. Where did it go? One Rental at a Time. Videos. If I can find the thumbnail. Do you need an LLC to buy a rental property? And it's a Zoom meeting with 3 of us in the thumbnail. It's a perfect thumbnail too. But it's on One Rental at a Time. Esther, howdy. Do you include monthly maintenance assumption in cash on cash calculation? I do. So even if my reserve account is full and the 10% for maintenance and repairs and CapEx and 5% for vacancy isn't going into the reserve account, it's going into the investing fund. I still calculate that in the numbers for cash on cash return because I want to make sure that asset by itself is a good investment, even if I have the reserves. I've heard Matt, the lumberjack landlord, say he doesn't have to do that because he keeps his reserves and he's got the cash flow and everything. But I'm always looking at that new investor with the first property. I run the numbers on the 7th purchase and the 8th purchase exactly like the first one. If I was buying it by itself, does it justify the expense? Will the return with the CapEx and maintenance and vacancy, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance still get me the return I'm looking for? So yes. Keith, landlording is a business. There comes a time when you have to put your big britches on. Exactly. Still helpful. Laughing. ADBR. How long did it take you to go from 2 properties to 3? So I owned a house. I moved into an apartment and then another apartment and then a duplex. So that was 2 years. Saved for 2 years to get the 3rd property. So 4 years from when I decided I'm going to start being an investor. 2 years to get rental income on my tax returns. Purchase the first duplex as a house hack. 2 years to save the down payment for the 3rd property. So 4 years total to go from living in a house to having 3 rentals, 3 properties. Johnny Cashflow Ramirez. I'm looking for a CPA referrals. BiggerPockets has a pretty good set of forums for looking for CPAs, agents, and those kind of things. My CPA lives in Alaska and is not taking new clients. I've asked, which is really weird. I try to give referrals to my handyman. I try to give referrals to my agents and my whatever vendor I'm using because I want to support their business because then they're more likely to deal with me good in the future or well in the future. Grammar's hard. So I try to do the same thing with my CPA. And he's like, nope, we don't need any more customers. It's a weird business. Lumberjack. Nope, still here with the people. Awesome. Jonathan Lucas. You're an over-the-road driver. You're 23. Love listening to your videos, man. Keeps me moving on the road and inspired. What recently did, in my chat move, sorry. Recently did a seller's finance on a condo that I live on. Just the HOA fees is high. Yeah, so the condo HOA fees can be a thing. The problem with HOAs for me is the random assessments. They might fix or repair or replace something that you don't think needed done, and you got to pay your portion of that. So that can be the thing that sucks. My biggest problem with HOAs is, and this is personal experience, so not any HOA boards that any of you are on or know somebody that's on, but all of the HOA boards that I've dealt with suck. There are people on the boards who have nothing better to do than mess with their neighbors. And if you're in the good old boys club and you've known everybody for a while, you can do whatever you want. But if you're not in that group, you get fines for whatever that other people are doing. So I don't want the headache that comes with being in an HOA, which is why I avoid them. Doesn't mean that they don't work. There are people who are very successful who invest in properties that have HOAs. Cool. And then let me know, Jonathan Lucas, if I made a channel on truck driving, would you watch it? I was on a truck driving channel called The Happy Trucker or The Helpful Trucker. It was one of the two. And that was kind of fun to try to share. If you're driving and you have consistent income, here's how you invest to make work optional. Yeah. ADBR, use the profits to try and purchase 2 more. So to try and purchase 2 more, if you've studied the market and you know that the deals exist that you would like to move into, yes, that's what I mean. What do you do with those funds? I've got a friend here in Washington who did it. She tried to do a reverse 1031 exchange where she bought 2 properties in Ohio, sold a property in Washington, then tried to 1031 that. Messed up the timeline and learned something. So she ended up doing an actual 1031 using that funds to buy another one. So from the sale here, she purchased 2. That money's still in the properties, and then she used the 1031 to purchase a third. She's got another rental in Washington, so she's doing great. But if you know the deals and you can find them, and you have some reasonable confidence that by the time you sell or whenever you're going to do this, that you'll find the deals, sure, then it makes more sense. Jones O, what company? Jonathan Lucas. Yeah, where are you guys driving for? And ADVR, great response. Thank you, Jonathan Lucas. It's Kennesaw Transportation, Atlanta, Georgia. Nice. Sajan, howdy. Your content and Michael's has been realistic and very valuable to understand all of the stuff real estate includes. Searching your first property, thanks to you all. That is awesome. Let us know how it goes. And please keep coming back here as questions come up, because the more you do this, the more questions that are going to come up. And everything you do in real estate is going to be scary the first time. The second time, it's almost going to feel like you could teach a class. So happy to help if we can. Keith, Dragonlance and Salon. I've been trying to find on the world map for a long time. Shame on you, lie. So this is a new map. It's actually going to be the traveling map. So when I go, because it's literally a sheet. The other ones are all tapestries. They're like carpet thick. So taking it to Idaho to do a video in Idaho, not really an option. But this I can fit the carry-on. So there's a couple reasons for the maps. I think I've talked about it before in videos and live streams. Let me say the first thing is acoustics, sound quality, and that's why I think this whole live stream might suck, because I think I grabbed the wrong mic when I turned it on. So I'm hoping the audio isn't terrible. But because I've got like a real mic, and then I think it's on the Mac mic, which is not a real mic. If you can even hear me when I whisper, but that helps with acoustics. Second, it helps because sometimes I record at work, sometimes I record at home. I want to be able to record when I'm traveling, and I want consistency in the videos. All right, audio is fine. Good, thanks. So maybe it's switched back to the right mic. G. Boland. It's actually why I tried to move the camera up so you could see the name of the continent on this one, because normally it's just the map. G. Boland, howdy. Dion, do you use an automated service to collect your rents and your service calls? I do not. I have a video on my channel called How I Collect Rents, 3 Things I Consider. And here's the Cliff Notes version. Imagine living in a world where you need a Cliff Notes video version of a YouTube video. First is I want to make it easy on the tenant. So I use a lot of different systems because tenants are familiar with different things. PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, ACH. I'll take a check and deposit it with the app. Zelle. Second thing is I want it to leave a paper trail, an electronic paper trail. I want there to be some record that the transaction happened. I have a tenant who's paying me in cash, so I'll have to actually do a receipt for that. And the third thing is I'm lazy. I want to save a trip to the bank. So it has to be a format where I don't want there's a cashier's check you can deposit with the app, but there's sort of like a MoneyGram or something you can't deposit with the app. So I try not to take those. Um, and as far as my service calls, I prefer text to everything. And if anything is important, I move from text to email because texts are not admissible in court in my area, but emails are. Um, yeah. So that didn't work. Still hopeful. For maintenance, you calculate 10% of what the monthly rent would be, right? Yes. So what is the rent going to be? So if I'm buying a property and the rents are $800 or $900 a month because they're below average, and I know area average is 15, so I'm going to get 1350 to 1450. I will calculate what I'm setting aside on the yield on what the rent is going to be after the binder method. Brett, howdy. It's been a while since I've been able to attend a live stream. Hope you're well. Just got your second rental operational. Cash flow $1,000 a month after holding 20% for reserves, including property management you manage. Awesome. Thank you. Your only experience in an HOA was fine. It was $106 a month for full exterior maintenance. But no short-term rentals were allowed, and I had to send notifications on every turn, which happened a few times because I rented by the room. The audio is fine. Awesome. So congratulations on that. $1,000 a month, cash flow, holding 20%. So if you could, how much did your cost to acquire? How much was your cost to acquire? Down payment, closing costs, immediate repairs. So that we can figure out $1,000 a month is $12,000 a year. If you invested $120,000, that's a 10% return. So how much did it cost you? And I see we're almost getting to the end of the questions at 2.5 hours. So Matt will pick on me all week for not going 3 hours if we don't come up with questions. Million, howdy. How different personalities affect investor? I am an introvert. So I believe it's one of the motivating things that makes me an investor. I went in the Marines. You have your unit, right? You're not dealing with everybody. You're your unit, and then whatever's in front of you. Went into law enforcement, so I have a gun and a badge between me and people. Became a truck driver because you're in your truck by yourself out there listening to a podcast or a book on tape, so you're learning. But I'm not around people. And I've had some people go, wait, how can you be an introvert? You literally have a YouTube channel. Right. I am in a room by myself with 3 guns. And I'm talking to a bunch of people, but are on camera. So I'm an introvert. That's my motivation for investing in rentals. I don't want to ever have to work. I work at the truck driving school because I generally work with people who are trying to make their life better. They're coming in to get a CDL or coming in for job placement. So I'm dealing with people who are improving their life. So I'm okay with that. But I don't want to have to work, right? So let's say I get fired from the truck driving school tomorrow. And if I didn't have a CDL, I'd have to go out and find a job where there are people. Ugh, that would suck. But rental properties, when I deal with a tenant, for the most part, 99.9% of the time, it's a text or an email, or maybe once a year or once every other year doing a binder meeting for 10 minutes. So my motivation is partly because of the introvert thing. There are some people who are very outgoing, and I think if you're going to be in real estate and you're very outgoing, real estate agent, do something where you're utilizing those skills. I don't want to be an agent because, again, people. Yeah, there are some people who are super frugal. My brother is super frugal. It makes sense for him to invest where he doesn't have mortgages. I am not debt averse. I woke up one day and had $89,000 in bad debt in my name that I didn't know about until the divorce. And I didn't go, oh, I need to file bankruptcy or I need to kill myself. I was like, how do I tackle this? So I'm not debt averse. When I realized that debt can make me more money, I was like, how do I get more? I'm still, how do I get more? Your personality is going to greatly affect you. And so it can help you choose your strategy. If you really want to be busy and you're looking for work, flipping is a lot more work. The Burr method is a lot more work than what I do. Short-term self-managed rentals is a lot more work than what I do. Um, yeah, understanding your personality type is going to help you choose what you want to do with investing too. So hope that helped. Ryan, howdy. Dion, have you ever had trouble filling a vacancy? I know you do a great job and prioritize keeping tenants. What is the Okay, that is one of my biggest limiting beliefs holding me back from buying my first rental. That is a beautiful question, and it kind of comes up often, and it's the right question for a new investor to ask. It's the wrong mindset, but it's the right question. Okay, filling a vacancy isn't the question. It's if I don't fill a vacancy fast enough, how much lower do I need to make the rent go? That's the concern. If the rents in the area are so low that you would have to have the rents down to where you're not making any money and you're losing money, that would be bad. You don't have a vacancy unless you have a mindset of, I'm just going to set the rents here. I have a friend who recently bought a duplex, and in the conversation, she said, well, I would set the rents here because that's where I would make money. Well, that's not how it works. What are the area average rents? Because that's what set rents. And hers was right at it. So I ran the numbers less than that, about 10% less. So if the place was vacant for a long time, what she was estimating might have come down. What I was estimating might have come down. So it's not that the place is going to be empty for 2, 3, 4 months. It's 2 or 3 weeks as you mentally go, okay, I'm not getting enough hits. My longest, I've never had a vacancy. I've never actually had one. My 2 tenant turnovers. One, I had 4 days between the tenant out and the tenant in, but that tenant was of several applicants weeks before the place was empty. And the next one, tenants paid for a month that were out. So I had that whole month to fix it. And then the next tenant was in. I have a list of people who have reached out looking for places. And my next one that might open because some people might be moving for some custody things to another part of the state is in June. So I have a list of people hoping that there's a life change for one of my tenants in June. So it's not how long will I have a vacancy? The question is, if I want this rent, how much lower would the rents have to go to attract somebody? Because there was a right number for a tenant. And it's totally unique to each area. You want to know the vacancy rate. You want to know if you're in a scary part of town or an attractive part of town. You want to know if you're next to train tracks, airplanes, a noisy club. Like over under properties aren't as tenant attractive as side by side properties. What aspects of the property I like washer dryer hookups in the unit. I like to allow pets. Like there's all these things that attract tenants that you could be doing. So it's not like it's a simple, easy answer like I started with. It's more like once you learn all of the basics, the main thing to worry about is where do I need to set the rent to attract the tenant? That's what I would worry about. So I hope that helped. That was a good question. That's the question I like to see a new investor because it means your mind's coming to the right point. I'm getting the basics, but what if I don't? What these are the actual what ifs that can happen. What if I don't have a tenant? Well, you have to lower the rent. It's not that you just have to wait until a tenant shows up. It's you'd have to lower the rent eventually. Eventually, somebody will pay that rent, and the amount that it would take. Is it still worth buying the property? Larry, howdy. An HOA is like a management group that manages the property manager. Yeah. Yeah. Brett, this one was a 25% down in Denver, so quite an expensive property. After you make ready and all your costs ended up right around 130, the cash on cost is above average, 10% and appreciating focus market. It's a beautiful deal. That is absolutely what you should be shooting for. Yeah, that's good. I like it. Congratulations. That's the kind of deals I would like to do. Like I've saved up the down payment. I want the next property to cost me $1 million. But if the right duplex in my area with that kind of cash on cash return pops up, I've made offers. I've had an offer out on a Burr last week, which would have been my first one. I didn't get it. Like I said, I would probably get outbid. I did get outbid. They chased the numbers. I wasn't chasing the numbers. I was chasing a great Burr deal to be the first one, but I'm not going to chase numbers that don't work. Chester, you'd mentioned about different bank accounts. I found out I have to keep deposits in 2 different bank accounts here in Maryland, but other than that, there aren't any. So I usually say that in my kind of sales pitch of this is my system of one bank account, and then at the end I give a caveat of, checking, saving, credit card. Check your local area. You might be required to keep deposits in a separate interest-bearing account. Yep. Jonathan, trying to see your truck driving channel. Yeah, I don't know what I would put in there. I know I have a bunch of stuff from the school and students and the jobs they're getting, and I could do the interview of, hey, you graduated 2 weeks ago. Which company did you choose? What's the sign-on bonus? Like I have a friend who went through, just got hired by UNFI. It's an $8,000 sign-on bonus. 2,000 at 3 months, 2,000 at 6 months, 4,000 at a year. Starting wage $28 an hour or something. I don't know. There's all these different things. That's the kind of stuff people want to hear. You went to school, you got your CDL. What happened? And maybe some CDL instructor horror stories. We'll see if that makes sense or not. Shubsy, howdy. Dion, what model do you follow? I thought you did burrs. No. I was going to try my first burr. This doesn't get me as much as LLCs do, but sometimes when I talk about LLCs, I get elevated. When it comes to the burr method, it gets a whole bunch of hype. I don't want to do a refinance. I want to put the money in a property and leave it there to work. I don't want to do a rehab. I don't want to do a refinance. If you're a new investor, so many people hear the word burr and they think, okay, so I could recycle my capital and I can stack up a bunch of properties really quick, right? But then you hear of like cash flow per door of $100 to $200, and I'm thinking, well, my lowest was I think $430 per door, and that was probably my worst deal, right? Like I don't want to do that. And the burr is to get a bunch of properties. I don't want a bunch of properties. I wanted enough to make work optional, which happened in 2018. I've had 2 properties since then. Cash flows over tripled. I don't want a bunch of properties. And I call myself the lazy investor. I'm working full time. I'm doing a YouTube channel. I'm self-managing 16 rental properties. I run a nonprofit. I'm investing to get cash flow. I'm not investing to make a job. So I haven't had to do a rehab. I haven't had to figure out hard money. I haven't had to use commercial lending. I don't use any LLCs, so I wouldn't need that for hard money. As a new investor in those first 5 years or so, before you have 1 or 2 properties to figure things out, most people are going to mess up the after repair value, because most people don't even realize. They're thinking, if I take a $300,000 property, like it's a 3-bedroom house in my area, they all sell for $300,000, which is a hypothetical in my area because they're way more than that. But they buy it for $200,000, and then they spend $50,000 fixing it up. So they now have a $300,000 property that they've spent $250,000 to get. So they're going to take out the refinance. You do not have a human being trying to purchase the property for $300,000. The after repair value is going to be based on 6 months ago appraisals. The appraiser is not going to use comps, so you're not going to get the current value of the property. They don't have an actual human saying, I want to buy it for $300,000. They say, I want to refinance it. It's worth $300,000, so I want to be able to take out 75% to get my money back and pay back the hard money loan and get all my money and recycle it. It's too easy to make a huge mistake when you're just starting out, to not even understand how the appraisal is going to work on a refi versus how it works on a purchase. How long does the repair take? What are supply chain issues doing to it? What are costs doing? How busy are contractors? What's the permit process like in my municipality? Like all these things you can mess up. When you're using hard money, that timeline might not work out perfect. And instead of owing them 12%, you owe them 20%. Once you have 5 to 10 years of investing and you have the cash flow from several assets to support the mistakes you're probably going to make, then try the burr method. At a little over 10 years of investing with 6 figures of profit, I'm just now starting to make offers on potential burr properties. So thanks for asking that question. I do buy and hold, rent ready or already occupied small multifamily that need almost no work. I prefer to have tenants in place, and then I use my binder strategy to get the tenants to request a rent increase, which is where I get my yield from, buying properties straight off the MLS using traditional lending, where I just save up the money for the down payment, buy the next property. I've house hacked twice, so I do use the cheat code to wealth, where you reduce or eliminate your largest expense and you use owner occupied lending. So I've done that twice out of 7 properties, which gave me 16 units. So hopefully that was a good breakdown. If I haven't had the videos covering that in a while now, probably. So thanks for that, Chubsy. That was a great question. Chester, would it make sense to have an account for maintenance, escrow, repairs, and capex, or would it be better to keep everything together that's legally allowable? Less deposits. That is how I do it. So I don't give advice. You can have an account for everything if you like, but your likelihood of having an overdraft problem is because you have separate accounts. I just put everything in one. My emergency fund is in one. My investing amount is in one. My operating income is all in one because I don't have LLCs. Everything's in my name. So I don't need to separate anything. Have an account for deposits and an interest-bearing separate account. But that depends on your area if it's required. If it wasn't even required, I wouldn't even do that. As simple or complex as you want this to be. Yeah. Samar Farho. Probably going to say that wrong. Howdy. What is considered wear and tear? And would you allow pets under 6 months? So I always allow pets. It helps me limit tenant turnover. Pets do less damage than kids do, so I'm okay with pets. Wear and tear, I think some places actually define it where you can't charge to replace carpet out of a deposit if the tenants live there a certain number of years. So I think in some places you can charge for carpet cleaning, but not carpet replacement. If they've lived there less than a year and you have to replace it, then it's not wear and tear. Check your local laws for that. Local property management companies might know the answer. Local attorneys might know the answer. Local real estate meetup groups is a good place to source information, but make sure that you also trust but verify, find out the information from a real source, not just another investor. Or you might get something that was real 5 years ago and is no longer the case. Wear and tear. Yeah, that's kind of subjective. I have the property that has holes. There's 3 interior doors where their kids have just punched holes through the doors. She asked me not to replace them. So they're kind of fixed. Once they move out, she wants me to use the deposit to replace those. So that's not wear and tear. Holes in doors is not wear and tear. Door hinges giving way over enough time can be considered wear and tear. Yeah, but there's so many different aspects of what that could be. I'd be a little more specific on that one. Jay Markey, howdy. I apologize if you've already answered this question, but is it okay to request a higher rent from pet owners than non-pet owners as long as it is disclosed upfront? I charge a pet fee, $250 non-refundable pet fee, and then a $25 a month pet fee. Not per pet, just for having pets. You can't call a pet fee a non-refundable deposit. By definition, a deposit is refundable. So it's a non-refundable pet fee. I wouldn't want to not allow pets because then you just have to deal with the headache of somebody going online and Googling fake, BS, made up, pet is a support animal, print out, bring it to you, argument. Don't even have to think of that. I just go, you can have pets. Here's the fee. I think one time I had a tenant ask if I have this fake made up BS thing and it's a support animal, can I waive the pet fee? The one time it came up, I don't think I had to find the answer because she had 3 pets. And I was like, well, which one's the support animal? So she's still paying the pet fee. But that's a good question too. Samar Farjo, would you take ACH payment through online bank that would expose some personal info like a bank account? Yep, I do it all the time. I take ACH. Your information is out there. If somebody wants it, they're going to get it. I don't have that problem. I've never had an issue. I've never had somebody have the ability to withdraw money from my account just because they had the account number. Have you ever written a check to anyone on the planet? I mean, if you're under 40, it's possible you've never written a check. But your check had your address, your phone number, your account number, your routing number. All of that was on that thing. So everybody who's ever written a check, that information's on there. How can giving somebody your account for ACH payment be any different than writing a check for something? So I accept ACH payments as one of the forms of payment that I take. Keith, HOAs are as low as or as low as timeshares, worse than worms. This is not a politics statement, just an honest opinion. That's why I say it's based on my personal opinion. My single family house that I bought before I was an investor is in an HOA. And I'm not going to flip you guys off, but to all of the people on that HOA board, it's the one reason, that's one of the reasons why I think sometimes about selling that property. I kept it through a divorce, so the little petty part of me is like, nope, never selling. But it's also paid off and cash flowing really well. So there's are some other reasons to it, but I hate owning in an HOA. And the fee for that HOA is like $140 a year. So that's not the problem. It's the random assessments and the, can you say this on YouTube? Douchebags who are on that HOA board. Apparently I could say that on YouTube. Let me see. Where were we? Caleb. So if I have a BK still on your, okay, so bankruptcy still on your credit, does that take me out of the game? I'm focused on my credit, number one goal. Doesn't take you out of the game, makes you less likely to get lending and probably likely to get a little worse lending terms. So it's going to depend on time and a couple of other things. Definitely talk to lenders and compare lenders. They're all not made the same. And what they do 1 month at the same lending is not going to be what they do at the next month at the same lending. So no, I don't think that takes you out of the game. In some cases, I don't know if this is true, but I've had lenders say, we don't have a problem selling or getting a loan product to somebody with a bankruptcy, justifiable reasons or whatever. They'll have you do an LOE, letter of explanation, because for a certain number of time, you can't file a bankruptcy again, whereas somebody who doesn't have a bankruptcy on their record can. We are drink time. How do people say smooth after drinking that? It's like lukewarm battery acid. Okay. Where was I at? HOAs, bankruptcy, number one goals. Yeah, so focus on credit. That's good. While you're working on credit, work on your saving, because the more money you have for closing costs, down payments, immediate repairs, all of that, every dollar that goes into that account opens up more and more options for you. One thing that a bankruptcy doesn't impact is seller financing. So you can be making seller financing offers while you're saving. With asset-based lending, I know your credit score has a big impact. I would have to ask my friend this Thursday. I'm in a mastermind group with a guy named Alex, and I'll ask him if a bankruptcy impacts asset-based lending, where they're looking at the property, because I know your credit score matters with asset-based lending. Your work history, your income, your debt-to-income ratio don't matter as much, but I don't know about a bankruptcy. So I will know by next week. That almost killed me. So where were we? Still hopeful. Dion, I know you focus on duplexes, triplexes, and you frown on rehabs. How old does a roof have to be for you to not buy it? I purchased a fourplex that needed a roof. I knew in the purchase that that was going to be part of the cost to acquire. So that's not a rehab to me. That's 3 or 4 phone calls and a couple of emails to get estimates from a roofing company. So that, a roofing job is a day, maybe 2 if something goes wrong, and doesn't impact the tenants. They can be there while it's happening. Replacing cabinets and doing flooring and paint and all that stuff, that's a rehab where the tenant's got to get. I haven't done that, but I've done a roof. So add that price to your cost to acquire. And if it still gets you the yield, which mine did, mine was, so purchase price was a fourplex purchase price, closing cost, down payment, roof, some other repairs was $141,000. And it makes, that first year, it made $17,000 in profit while I was house hacking, 19 something in profit. So it was way better than a 10% return, even with the roof included. So it just depends on the deal. Will it make sense? Will you get the yield you're looking for if that's added to your cost to acquire? Shubsy, you're welcome. Thanks. Still hopeful. Aren't you worried to buy a property with a bad tenant in it? So you have the reserves to handle how long an eviction might take. If you live in California where they're extending the eviction moratorium to 2023, that might start impacting your decision-making process. Also, How much would cash for keys possibly cost you to pay somebody to move? And I've done it for $1,000 twice, and I pay it towards the deposit on where they're moving. But in a really bad case, like I was the property that I made an offer on to do the BRRRR, there was a non-combative, non-cooperative tenant in place. So I knew there was a bad tenant there. I was thinking, what if I spent $10,000 to get this person out of that property? Cost to acquire still made sense. So yes, you can buy a property with a bad tenant in place. You are just as likely to place a tenant who ends up being bad. The two times I know people who've gone through evictions, like my brother and somebody else who went through evictions, was with people that had been there for a while. One, my brother was doing a standard regular, it was like a 5 or a 10% rent increase. And the guy says, nope, I'm just going to keep paying the regular amount. Ended up being an eviction. Guy had been there like 4 years. So you always have the risk of having a bad tenant. I like buying tenants in place because they've usually been ignored. They've usually been getting a really good deal on rents, and usually nothing at that property has been fixed. So I come in, fix small things, ask them what they want fixed, put in coded locks, put in motion sensor LED exterior lights, let them know I'm going to take care of this place. And then 2 months later, do a binder strategy where most tenants have never had the conversation with their landlord about what their rent's going to be. And I'm actually asking them, what do you think is fair? Never had a problem. So I'm confident that when I do, I'll be able to handle it because of reserves. Know the laws in your area. Know what the eviction timeline looks like in your area. Know that so if I want to buy a property where I'm going to intend to occupy, I have to give 90 days notice. So within 3 months, if I didn't collect any rent for 3 months and I add that to my cost to acquire, that's a possibility. I have to give a 20-day notice if I'm not going to renew a lease. So it depends on when their lease expires. So you can know all of that going in. And let's say their rent was low and the binder strategy didn't work. I've never seen it not work, but let's say it just didn't and their rent was low. So if you think area average rents are $1,000 a month and they're paying $600 and they don't want to raise it at all, they just magically stay at $600 or whatever, however long it takes to get them out of there. So their lease has 7 months going still. Well, that's $400 a month that you're not going to get. $400 a month times 7 months is math. Where's Matt? Matt would tell me quick. So $2,800 that you're not going to get. Add $2,800 to your cost to acquire. Does that still get you the yield you're looking for over a long enough timeline? I'm okay with acquiring a bad tenant, but know the math. Have your reserves and look at your yield. If you added the cost to acquire, things like cash for keys or an eviction process or how many months without rent or how many months with a lower rent. So still hopeful. I totally get it. You got to go to bed. It's late there. And we'll be wrapping up here pretty soon because we're hitting that East Coast is late time. Samar Farjo, thank you. What is considered an emergency maintenance that landlords have to fix ASAP? Fire, flood, or blood. Anything that can cause those three things to be the topic of discussion. Loose banister. In certain areas, a source of cooling. If you during a certain months, if your air conditioning's out or if your swamp cooler stops working or whatever, in certain areas, source of heat. I think at one time I had a septic backup where I paid for hotel rooms for the tenants for the 2 days it took to get everything taken care of. So that's it. Fix it immediately. Anything that's going to get somebody hurt or be a safety concern. If a path of egress is blocked, that's an immediate. But remember those words, fire, flood, or blood. If something can happen that will affect those three things, that's a fix it now. The electric panel box sparks when I turn this thing on. That's fixed today. Yeah, fire, flood, or blood. If you can remember those words, that's the fix it now stuff. Lumberjack landlord, two types of people. A person that has been burned by an HOA and those that hasn't bought one in one yet. Exactly. I have vodka, and then I have vodka in the Mountain Dew, which this is usually a little easier for me to drink. Except there's no vodka in it. Oh, who did that to me? Oh, it's just regular Mountain Dew. Still hopeful. I understood you got to take off, Caleb. The bankruptcy is about 8 years old. Thanks for keeping my hope up. I think, according to some lenders, bankruptcy is mattered at the most was 7 years. So you might be at the threshold where it doesn't matter anymore. Ask your lender specifically what matters to them and be transparent. They're going to find it. A lot of people say, well, that drops off my record here, especially when somebody's coming out to get their CDL. They'll say, well, I had a ticket from 12 years ago. So blah. That's on there forever. When they say drops off, it means most employers are going to care about the last 3 years for things like DUI or reckless. But a DUI from 27 years ago is still on your record. So if they ever say, have you ever had a bankruptcy? Yes, 8 years ago. If you're getting a CDL, have you ever had a reckless driving? Yes, 14 years ago or whatever. Just be transparent because they only care about 3 or 5, sometimes 7 years or whatever. But they'll see it. And if you omit it, that's a lie. Chester, and then my chat moved. The secret is to place the container of vodka in salty ice water so that it's super cold when it goes down. Also, keep the vodka in a freezer so it's super chilled when you're ready to sip on it. Or get pomegranate vodka. That was like drinking Kool-Aid. Yeah. Sammer, thank you. Caleb, thank you. Matt, you got this. Or Caleb, you got this. Slow and steady wins the race. Agreed. Chester. Caleb, you may want to check on how long a bankruptcy stay is. Yep, I believe it's only 7 years. You may already be in the clear. So that's true. Or that's what I thought too. Bobby, I have 3 lots in Putnam County, Palatka, Florida, Central Florida. Can you comment on what to do with it? Build, put mobile homes, rent land, etc. I know you are in Washington. So I have friends who live in Cape Coral who are investing in Florida. The one thing I've found out in Florida is no matter what strategy you're looking at, contact an insurance agency and find out what flood insurance is based on that property. So if you're going to build some things, I know that houses built now, new builds, are built to a certain level so that they meet a certain flood threshold. But there are older homes that don't. So the flood insurance for those is exponentially more expensive, but you don't have builds on there now. That telling you what to do with the property would only be, first, I don't give advice. Second, almost an impossibility. Do you want to manage self-storage? What is the saturation level of self-storage in that area? Would tiny homes work better? Would RV pads work better? I mean, it's Florida. How many people travel in RVs to Florida? There's so many different options that you can go there. I would probably go to local REI groups and learn the market for 60 to 90 days and figure out what is going to be the best thing to do. Find out with that municipality, go in and talk to the city planning council and figure somebody on it or somebody that works in the city department. What is the permit process like there? What is most likely to be approved? What do they like? What do they not like? I know that some RV or some municipalities don't like anything to do with mobile homes because a mobile home is not an actual upgrade to the property, so it doesn't increase the property taxes. But mobile homes usually have families, which means they have kids that take advantage of the school system. So the school system is being used without the property creating taxes to cover the school system expense. So find out from the city what they're most likely to want you to build. Find out from contractors what works and what doesn't. Contact insurance. So you've kind of got like a list of to-do things there. But I don't think anybody's going to be able to help you make that decision until you have enough information to figure out what's the best way to go. Hope that helps. And I'm sorry, I just noticed Chester said when you don't sip on vodka, you sip on whiskey. Vodka, you fill your stomach with. When down here, okay, so I think we're almost done with questions. Ninja Vanish 247. Howdy. What kind of coded locks do you use? Is that the DAP? Did you have a DAP emoji? Nice. Ninja Vanish, sorry. I have a video on my channel called Which Locks I Use. I use Schlag coded locks. And in that video, in the description, is actually a link to buy them. I prefer the coded locks where you enter the code and then the human being turns and engages the lock or disengages it. I don't like the ones where you put in a code and then the little monkey motor in there pulls it out, right? The ones with the motor that pulls it out and engages and disengages it, that battery lasts 2 to 3 months. The batteries in mine where you enter the code and it just engages the lock so you can twist it in or out, those batteries, I haven't had them die in 2 years. So it's in my lease that they're replaced every year, but I have one at one of the doors on my place, been there over 2 years, still using the same battery. Which reminds me, I should probably change that. But I do 2 locks. There's 2 exterior doors on each rental. They both get a coded lock because most tenants, most humans use one lock or one door more than the other. So it's most likely that that's the battery to die first. So if it ever dies, you're not calling for a lockout. They just walk around and use the other door. I've never had a tenant lockout with 2 coded locks in place. Let me put my email down here. That was the macro, not the email. All right, now you guys know I cheat with macros. Okay. Coded locks. So Schlag coded locks. And my link is in the video. Adam, fire, flood, or blood? And then I'll have to look up that emoji. There's my email, Bobby. Chester, a little after 2200 here, about to hit the hay after I check out the debate with Relis. Thank you as always, Dion. Matt, lurking in the background. Have a great night. Thank you. Yeah. I use Yahoo. I don't use a Gmail email. I probably have one. I don't think I've ever used it. I think it has a bunch of YouTube spam that goes to it. We are over the 3-hour mark. I'm going to give like another minute in case anybody has any really pressing questions. I want to thank everybody who hung out. We ended up hitting 50 likes. I have to dye my hair blue. So next time you see me, I will have blue hair here. All right. Looks like that was all the questions. I hope this helped. The whole point of this video, if you ever get bored, go back to the first 20 minutes or so. It was the step-by-step process on how I define making work optional. Doesn't mean retire, doesn't mean quit your job, just means you can. So everybody have a good night. Thanks a lot. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.